All right, welcome everybody. Earlier start and a bit of a different day today. This is day 9 in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. The defense has rested, and so today what we are going to see, the jury won't be in today, and it is going to be a discussion and presumably a final decision about the instructions that the judge is going to give the jury. And this is really, not only is it not trivial, this is arguably one of the most important things. I told the story. By the way, we've already banned 8 people, and I've been on for 30 seconds. There were people getting banned before and people continuing to get banned now. It's actually crazy. It's humiliating what the clingers have done, who are following this trial on my channel for some reason. It's crazy. I told the story of my jury duty. And it was a case about self-defense, actually, not with a death, but with a physical attack. And we were given specific instructions as to what self-defense means by the law. And 2/3 of the jurors, not me, of course, 2/3 of the jurors were going by their belief about what self-defense is. And so this is not trivial. This is a really, really big thing. And then Monday, the closing statements are going to take place. 2.5 hours per side have been allotted, including the prosecution's rebuttal. And by roughly 2, 3 in the afternoon local time, the jury will start to deliberate. And then we will see, right? And then we will see. So that's the plan, scheduled to start in a few minutes. We're going to be covering all of it. While we wait for people to connect, I do have other things I want to go over, and I have a bunch of clips related to the judge and a lot of different things. I'm going to play a voicemail that I've not listened to, but I can see that it contains extreme profanity and explicit language. So I'm going to warn people ahead of time. If you have kids watching right now or whatever, I'm about to play a voicemail that seems to contain very, very disgusting attacks on me. It's not from Whitney. So I'm warning everybody. I'm about to play it. I'm about to play it. Okay, let's listen. This is us listening together.
You're a pussy, little bitch, piece of shit, cocksucking, cunt. Eat a fucking dick, swallow some knives. Fuck you.
Okay. So there is the voicemail that I warned everybody about.
Elements of bathrooms.
So we're going to have to try to flush that message 10 or 15 times. It will be report. Yeah. We report all of those. And sometimes, you know what's crazy? I mean, someday I will tell these stories, but sometimes someone who is actually on the radar of law enforcement will leave a voicemail. And the fact that they don't block their number will lead to things that happen. And I have stories that I could tell. You would be shocked at the stories I could tell you. Let's put it that way. What else do we have here? Eggman commenting on 41-month sentence for one of the Trump rioters.
Hey, Dave, 41 months for assaulting a police officer at the Capitol is definitely not enough. However, the guys that think that 41 months is too much, all this guy should have done is taken an assault rifle, shot a couple of people, murdered them, and then claimed he feared for his life, and he definitely would have gotten no time. Kyle Rittenhouse is completely getting off, and 41 months for assaulting a police officer, I saw the video, is nothing. Those people that protested the BLM in Minneapolis and Seattle, I looked up some of those sentences, okay? They're way more than 41 months, and they didn't hit cops. It was for, like, property damage and arson, and skateboard smashing. Shalom, brother. This is bullshit. You know it.
Shalom and Shabbat Shalom coming very, very soon. I am going to be picking up a challah bread imminently, elements of challah, because tomorrow I am making challah French toast, and it's going to be crazy, actually. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's do one Eric from Mass. He's calling daily now.
Hey, David, it's Eric from Mass. I've got to start to think that these mounting lies are deliberate. Trump was at ground zero. I have video. More than happy to send it to you. you know, I don't know if I check your email. Let me know somehow or whatever. But I'm more than happy to show it to you. Another lie. So.
Hey, is that the actual TYT Sports account who likes the Challah French toast reference? I think it might be. Is that actually? There's a check mark next to it. That's great. If the TYT Sports guys are here, welcome everybody, whoever it is that's here with that account. Okay, I do have, thanks to Small Fuzzy Moss, I now have in my soundboard a bunch of different audio elements from Judge Schroeder, and people might like these. Let's take a listen to what we've got.
Whatever you do, make sure you go to the bathroom somewhere other than the courtroom.
Right. That was on the first day when the judge was kind of explaining the ground rules. And one of the ground rules was do not go to the bathroom in the courtroom or in the jury box. He did not want that. I've got a bunch of the food-related ones.
By the way, how are the calzones? The food is here. Let's take a break. Lunch is here. Pizza is here. But we have Subway tomorrow.
Right. So the judge really, really wrapped up with the different lunch elements. And then we do have the pickles quote as well.
Uncharged pickles?
I still think my favorite is calzones.
By the way, how are the calzones?
Man. Okay, so we have those in our arsenal now for moving forward, which I think is a really important thing. Let's see. Some super chats are coming in. Kimmy says, Pac-Man, come to Finland. Yes, I've been to Finland. I was in Helsinki. I was really all over that country, and I loved it. As many of you know, there's this salmon soup that is quite common for my family. Soup for my family, which I had in Finland. Excellent, excellent soup. Really hard to beat it, quite frankly.
Pizza is here.
Good morning. Thanks for covering the trial. If the world was sane, Kyle would become a proponent of gun regulation safety so no other kids end up in the same position as him. Yes, all good points. All good points. Okay, I have a few other things, folks. Let's look at some of these few other things. First, we have new memes. I don't know if you noticed, but yesterday there was a moment where people were looking at a screen. So people started sending me these. At one point, this is Judge Schroeder and the entire legal team trying to figure out the legality of my hair on a prior stream. And as you can see, some of these images are compressed vertically, some are compressed horizontally. There were questions as to whether the pickles were different colors in these images and which of these would be admissible to the jury. So they were looking at that very, very closely. They had another, let's see, here's another one. This one here, the judge was made aware by one of the bailiffs that during his trial, we were offering what could be illegal discount codes on memberships in Kenosha. And the judge went over and looked at it very closely. And as you can see, the coupon code up in the air, raising many, many, many problems in that courtroom. The defense attorney in particular was disgusted, hands on his hips, and just couldn't believe. We got busted yesterday. But we're still offering the code today, so that's what it is. We added pixels to the discount. And then also at another point, this was an example of where when you zoom in, it looks completely different. Although it looks like the zoomed area is someone holding a firearm, when they zoomed in, the pickles changed, and it was actually a pickle that the man was holding, not a gun. And so this was really the source of the controversy when it came to zooming and algorithms, logarithms, exponents. The mnemonic, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, for the proper order of operations that we all learned in middle school. The only thing is they were charged pickles. They were not uncharged pickles.
Uncharged pickles?
So that was that. All right, everybody. So that's the latest there. Let me see what else we have. Not only was the issue brightness and contrast, as some people in the chat are saying, another issue was actually saturation and hue. How saturated were the pickles with dill? How saturated were they? Were they actually bread and butter pickles, which is my preference? So all questions that are going to be answered at some point very, very soon. Gamer Pigeons asking, where's the hot food soundboard element? Our soundboard engineer, Small Fuzzy Moss, apprised me that they're looking for hot food. and they're going to have it over to me very, very soon. So we're standing by for that. Let's see. TYT Sports asking, David, do you put cinnamon on your challah French toast? I sometimes will add a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg. Sometimes not. You really, it's one of those things where you really don't need it if you have a good challah and you've got your egg milk batter. The thing I don't do is a lot of people add sugar to the French toast batter, for lack of a better term. Although, can it really be called batter if there's no flour? I don't know. That'd be, maybe Kenji could answer that question for us. But I don't do sugar because later I'm adding maple syrup. I don't need sugar and maple syrup. I know that, in other parts of the country they do that, but I don't find myself needing to. It's custard. Okay. I don't find myself needing to add sugar. Now, Kenji will tell you if you want it crispier, you can add sugar. I maybe it's something about the pan I'm using. It's crispy even without it. Yeah, nutmeg and cinnamon. I don't even do vanilla either. I don't even do vanilla. I don't need it. Some people, adding vanilla extract. Once I read on the internet, and I don't even know if this is allowed, someone using almond extract for French toast. And I thought that's got to be at least against federal law, if nothing, even if states allow it. Been watching you since the elections last year. Great show, great commentary. Greetings from Hungary. Hey, this is actually a really good question. Shane wants to know, should the jurors have had stromboli rather than calzones? I think that's a fair question.
By the way, how are the calzones?
Yeah. The trial is a parody of itself. I don't know what Saturday Night Live could even do with it tomorrow night. We'll see. Oh, yeah. I did get, I got my third dose yesterday. I got my third shot. I woke up, so I got it at 4:30 p.m. My time zone. I don't know what time. I mean, okay, it was 1:30 on the West Coast, but I don't think it matters. I'm not on the West Coast today. I got it at 4:30. I woke up at, let's see, when I went to bed at 11, my arm started to hurt. And I was awoken at 5 a.m. and I just didn't feel great, but it wasn't like too bad. I eventually woke up for good at 7:30 and I wasn't feeling great. It's basically like with my first and second dose, just not quite as bad. And I had a Tylenol with breakfast and I'm feeling okay right now. I took my temperature. I feel a little feverish. I'm not running a fever. But we're looking into the immune response pretty strongly. Yep, very much so. Alan says, as a Southerner who was told by a Michigan writer that they have no accent, this is all very delightful for me. Yeah, I mean, guys, come on,
Whatever you do, make sure you go to the bathroom somewhere other than the courtroom.
The bathroom. Also, every time they talk about the fires, basically it's like fire, but you just keep your mouth closed. That's the way I do it. Fire. The fires. They said a fire. No, there's quite an accent there. It's almost Canadian in a way. And I think that I think that in states like Wisconsin and Northern Michigan, etc., they refer to some of these, idiosyncrasies as Canadian raising. Have you guys heard that term before? Check out my interview on these accents with William Labov. I know it's not Canadian. I'm saying it goes in that direction, and there's a geographical proximity to Canada as well. Minnesota as well, yeah. The foyers. Yeah, it's like, wait a second. They set a house foyer. They went into your foyer, and they set it on fire. The foyer was on fire. It's crazy. It's probably the reason they didn't even have Stromboli. I don't think anyone would know what they meant if they pronounced Stromboli with a Kenosha accent. I think that's probably the explanation. Okay, let's get into some other things. I do have other things I wanted to go over with you guys here. First of all, there was a moment where there was a standing ovation yesterday in the courtroom, and we didn't know what it was. Now, the defense attorney is doing the Tucker Carlson face, which is great. Apparently what happened is yesterday was Veterans Day, and the judge said, are there any veterans here? It turns out the only veteran in the room was the next defense witness. So there ended up being a standing ovation for a defense witness. Do you think that taints the jury's opinion of that witness when the judge demands a standing ovation? So let's take a look at that.
I wanted to just observe that it's Veterans Day. And any veterans in the room, on the jury or anywhere else? Well, that's unusual not to have at least somebody in here. But Dr. Black is what branch? Army, sir. Okay, and I think we give a round of applause to the people who've served us.
Can you imagine?
Okay, so you may proceed.
Oh my God! So it's like the only veteran who they cheer for is the next witness for the defense. Just everything about it. I am gonna on Monday do a pretty deep dive into the interview that Rittenhouse's mommy did last night with Hannity. And I've said before that the entire Rittenhouse thing, whatever you think about the actual charges, which again, I think it's going to be not guilty for self-defense. This is not only a failure of gun culture, it's also a failure of parenting, because as I said before, there is no way it would even occur to me when I was 17 that it would be remotely plausible to consider thinking about exploring the possibility of maybe going armed to defend properties against riots, right? Okay, so we said part of this is the parenting. And if you watch the interview with his mommy, you will see that it's clearly this is a failure of parenting.
When the then candidate, now president of the United States, and other elected officials that don't know anything about your son refer to him as a white supremacist, I have yet to see any evidence whatsoever that he is such a person. When the then candidate...
So it was a very softball interview. Oh, sorry, I have to keep banning people. Man, we've already banned 20 people and we haven't even really started. So, okay, the one question Hannity should have asked here is, what were you thinking as a mother dropping your son off with a gun to defend property as a kid and getting him into this mess to begin with? Shouldn't you as a mother have said, Kyle, this is dangerous and insane and you're not going? That's the one question that should have been asked. It wasn't asked. Okay. Now, look, would Kyle have done it again? Yeah, he would have done everything the exact same way.
Have you and your son discussed whether or not if he had to do it over again, he would go into a situation like that?
First of all, had to do it over again. Why would he have to? The entire thing was optional.
With Kyle, I know him, and he probably would do it again because that's the type of person he is. He always wants to help people.
Who did he help? Who did he help? Just an indictment on the parenting crisis of the United States of America. Here's just one more clip, and we'll have a full review on this. This is a disastrous parenting element, right?
That's your son. How did that make you feel?
I just broke down with Kyle crying like that. It made me feel heartbroken, sad, and I wanted to just go up there and just hug him and tell him it would be okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's bad. Very, very bad. I mean, just none of this makes any sense. None of it makes any sense. And listen, in seeing the interview with the mom, it explains to us a lot of this situation. Now, if you're going to come through my chat and say things like Kyle is a hero, you're getting banned. You're just getting, that's it. You're getting banned. We're just not going to allow that stuff. You can have a view about guilt or innocence or whatever. But things like Kyle is a hero. Here's another one. Kyle took out the Antifa trash. You're banned. What else do we have here? I mean, it's just the number of bans. It's crazy, actually, how many people are getting banned. Soy Rage Pac-Man is a ban. Here's another Kyle is a hero, which is getting banned. What else? Man, it's sad to have to ban this number of people, you know? It really is. Okay. All right, good. Let's see. Kyle is a hero. Free the Kenosha kid. So let's see. Let's hide that user. They're banned. I appreciate the money. Dana, oh, is this the same person? Dana McWhite says, failure of parenting. What about all the guilty lies and misinformation you spread about Kyle? I think your parents failed. Oh, they're already banned. Okay, good. Judge, victim is too strong a word for me. So the domestic terrorists kill the American citizens. I would never take my son to a thing like this, but as a Canadian, LB Dobb to get the whole gun craze. Jesus, I don't know what that's about. Okay. All right, good. All right, welcome everybody. Today is a crucial day, and we're standing by for the judge right now. There's a little bit of disagreement as to whether they are 15 minutes late or 45 minutes early right now, but we're going to stand by for all of it, and as we are doing right now. The judge is going to finalize the instructions to the jury. In other words, what is the basis on... Oh, sorry, hold on a second. I got to ban more people. Beta male pussy person is getting banned. Who else are we banning here? Let's go. Brandon is a ban. This is actually great. We're bringing out so many obvious trolls that we're able to ban. This is actually really good. Are there any mods in the chat? Yeah, let's temporarily go over to member-only chat. So now at least you're going to have to pay to troll. I do want to thank folks. We are now on, this is trial day 9, meaning the 10th day, because there was also the jury selection, which we're not counting as one of the days. I really appreciate folks who have been supporting these streams. We are down to the last day. Remember, if we get to 50 members today, the mustache not only stays, I will darken it. I've committed to darkening it, not black because I don't have black hair. I will darken it in a way that matches my hair for Monday. For the Monday stream, I will be here for closing arguments with a filled in mustache. Okay, that's what's on the agenda for today. So first of all, I would love for you to sign up at joinpacman.com just because you want to support the work that we're doing. But as an extra incentive, the mustache has survived each day. And if it survives today, I've committed Monday, I will be here with the darkened mustache. And I predict it's going to be quite a scene. It could get us kicked off the air. I don't know. It could get us kicked off the air, but we're gonna look at that and monitor it very, very strongly. All right, let me refresh a few things we already looked at because not all of you have seen them. We got some great mimetic elements. At one point, the entire pixel controversy led to the judge wanting to get a really close look at pictures of my hair to see if it was honest and truly represented in these images or whether it had been compressed, modified, desaturized, saturated, I don't know, hue enhancement or different things. The judge also did not feel that pinch was appropriate during some of these moments. Also, other versions of this that people sent, which were really good. The coupon code at one point, the judge concerned it may be illegal, and he wanted to get a really close look at the coupon code we were using during his trial. He wants to run a clean trial and felt that up in the air was just a little bit too aggressive.
Sir, your wife is up in the air.
And then at another point, they were looking at a picture which, when zoomed and enhanced, changed what looked like a firearm into a pickle. And he didn't like that.
Uncharged piccolos?
Right. Okay. So that's that. We looked at that. We also kicked off the show with maybe one of the most aggressive voicemails I've ever received.
You're a pussy, little bitch, piece of shit, cocksucking, cunt. Eat a fucking dick, swallow some knives. Fuck you.
Right. All right. On the assumption that the trolls have calmed down a little bit, we're going to go back to just regular chat mode. And I very much appreciate that. Okay, a couple other things for you. I didn't actually realize that yesterday when the judge mentioned the thing about the Asian food, which they were getting for lunch yesterday, that he also made a political comment about the supply chain. I didn't even realize it, but that's exactly what he did. So let's take a listen to that.
Let's hope for 1 o'clock. I don't know. Hope the Asian food isn't coming. Isn't on one of those boats in Long Beach Harbor.
Right. So this is a reference to the shipping containers on boats in Long Beach Harbor, supposedly because of Joe Biden and because Pete Buttigieg was on paternity leave. So completely inappropriate comment for the judge to be making. I mean, it's just kind of like a WTF moment. Really, really weird. And then here is just this is a different trial. This was in the Ahmaud Arbery trial. And in the Ahmaud Arbery trial, the defense attorney objected to the fact that there are black pastors coming in and sitting with Ahmaud Arbery's family. I don't know what the race of the pastors, what role the race of the pastors plays. Now, you guys all know I'm no fan of Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson, whose name comes up, their history of anti-Semitic comments and all these different things. I'm just not, I don't care about Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson one way or the other. They're not interesting political figures to me, but this is a crazy comment. We don't want black pastors coming through here. What?
Over 100. And the idea that we're going to be serially bringing these people in to sit with the victim's family one after another, obviously there's only so many pastors they can have. And if their pastor's Al Sharpton right now, that's fine. But then that's it. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here or other Jesse.
So it looks like this woman sort of has a reaction, but tries to contain it. We don't want any more black pastors. Just watch this woman very closely. Let's see if we can even zoom it in, maybe. Here we go. Here we go.
That's fine, but then that's it. We don't want any more black pastors coming in here. Or other Jesse Jackson, whoever was in here earlier this week, sitting with the victim's family, trying to influence a jury in this case. And I'm not saying the state is even aware that Mr. Sharpton was in the courtroom. I certainly wasn't aware of it till last night. But I think the court can understand my concern about bringing people in who really don't have any ties to this case other than political interests.
Right. So quite a guy, huh? Quite a guy. So the they don't want any more. This isn't a revolving door of black pastors, guys. Give me a break. Okay. Martin says, I've been watching your coverage for a while. I appreciate the work you've done. Wondering how many times the judge of this trial will interrupt the prosecutor's closing statements. That's a good question. Hot food coming. Need to interrupt. I actually prefer charged pickles. Thanks for the coverage, David. It made for an interesting week. My pleasure, Jamie. And it will continue next week. Sorry to hear about Twitch. Hope this helps. I know a membership is better, but I'm already a member. Thanks for all you do. Very much appreciate that. And a bunch of people dumping in YouTube memberships here. The mom's response in the interview almost made her sound as sympathetic to Kyle Rittenhouse as the judge. Yeah. The DGG bridge is shaky right now, but there is a fix. We need Obama.
Obama.
David, sir, we should watch the Ahmaud Arbery trial for comparison on what a normal judge acts like. Yeah, is that actually going on right now? Because we might actually be able to pick up a few minutes of that. Oh, yes. Oh, but it's in recess. Okay, let's pull it up because it actually is so I'm not saying that everything's going swimmingly in the Ahmaud Arbery trial, but at least the role of the judge is not humiliating and pathetic. So we're going to keep an eye on both of these. I'll keep the volume up so that when they resume, we'll see it. And then they're in recess until 10:30. Okay, so they'll be back in 7 minutes. That's great. That's great. What are the coupon codes today? Okay, there's endless coupon codes available. Coupon code Up in the Air is available. Coupon code Felony21 is available. Coupon code Sad Trump is available. I believe that coupon code Cucked No More is also available. Do we want a pickles coupon code? I think it might be the day for it. If there's any day for it, let's see. Let me see if will uncharged pickles work? Uncharged pickles. Coupon code uncharged pickles for big discount goes off the edge. Let's see if for discount would work. No. I think I can just do, I mean, people will know it's a discount code, right? Uncharged pickles to save. There we go. Okay, so let me now put in the coupon code here. Coupons. Obama. No, I want to save the coupon code Obama for 2022 when hopefully Obama is actually campaigning for people. Okay, uncharged pickles. I want to make sure I'm spelling it correctly. Let's see. Oh, hold on. Sorry. I got to ban another one of these Kyle is a hero people. You are banned, permanently banned. All right. And let's make it a 69% discount. First person to use the code uncharged pickles gets a free item from my web store. All right. I'm putting it out there right now. Coupon code is live, my friends. Coupon code is live. Okay. New coupon code is uncharged pickles.
Uncharged pickles.
There you go. And it is live and it is working. First person to use it gets a free item, or an item as we might call it. Thanks to Vincent Adkins for signing up on my website, but with a different coupon code, not uncharged pickles. The offer for uncharged pickles still stands. Let's look at a few other super chats here. What do we have coming in? I worry about Kyle copycats after the verdict. I worry about it as well. Absolutely. Would be awesome to see Brian Tyler Cohen as a guest. You two doing a collaboration could bring massive dumps of subscribers for each other. I like the idea. Is there any reason you're covering Rittenhouse but not Arbery? Rittenhouse started earlier and I can't cover both, and we'll do what we can. But it seems as though this one is kind of wrapping, and we'll shift over to the Ahmaud Arbery case next week, assuming it's still going. I have no problem doing that. No problem doing that. Mocking President Trump's video for celebrating beloved veterans. That's one more video you've made about our troops. Severe case of Trump derangement syndrome, Wackman. I actually like the fact David Wackman has now spent about probably $150 on super chats just to criticize me, which is fine. Okay, it looks like we've got more people to ban here. David, been listening to the show for a year. Love the show and the content. I followed the trial. Got to get that horseshoe mustache. Whoa. What are your thoughts on pickles soaked in root beer and or Kool-Aid? I'm against it. Very, very strongly against it. Coupon code 45 is the new 0. Hi, David. Were you able to review the lies the prosecution caught Kyle in? I believe he lied about being issued a bulletproof vest and attending college. Yeah, I did actually get to review it. Let me see if I can find that video. Let's see what we got here. Rittenhouse vest college. Let's see if I can find that. Okay, here we go. Yep. So this is something yesterday. What about even going with perjury? All right. I mean, here we go.
When?
Well, we're working to see if we get a witness. It'd be a person from the Grays Lake Police Department to rebut the fact that Mr. Rittenhouse was issued a bulletproof vest by them. They indicate they did not issue him one. Also, I can't imagine we find someone, but the Arizona State or whatever university the defendant claims to be attending says he is not enrolled there and is not going to college there. I don't imagine we can get a witness for that, but we, of course.
Okay, yeah. So there was the explanation as to what they're looking to do. And that's really going to be, I don't know what role that will play. There were people saying, well, just, charge him with perjury. Unlikely, but certainly conceivable. Love the show, homie. # Tucker charged pickle army 2024. Exactly. Okay. The first person to use the coupon code Uncharged Pickles, earning themselves a free item from my web store, is William Woodruff, who is also new member number 2 today.
Uncharged Pickles.
Other new members I want to welcome. Elliot McKinley has signed up using that code. Nate Jimenez used Uncharged Pickles. Kirby Harding is a new member. Wilfredo Flores. Samuel Kaplan is a new member. Noah Capsales, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new members using the coupon code Uncharged Pickles.
Uncharged Pickles.
That puts us at 8. Other folks, oh wow, this is crazy. Juan Salazar is a new member. Carrie Sander has signed up. Daniel Petro is a new member. Nicholas Schaefer is a new member. And Michelle Cooper, Michelle, we love you here, all signing up using the coupon code Uncharged Pickles.
Uncharged Pickles.
Jumping us right out to 13. I see people asking, are we doing double Patreon today? Let's do it. Let's do it all. It's the last stream of the week. Let's do it. If you make a pledge at patreon.com/David Pakman Show, instead of counting as 1, it will count as 2. We're throwing everything at it. People asking how I'm feeling after my 3rd dose. So listen, I did tweet about this earlier. I hope people are following me. Had my 3rd COVID vaccine yesterday. Awoke with arm pain, headache, and aches. Full disclosure, I almost tripped coming out of the pharmacy due to a slippery, broken sidewalk area. Do I need to report that I almost tripped minutes after getting the vaccine in the VAERS system? Does anybody know whether that's a vaccine-related event that should be reported? Does anybody know? It should be reported. Okay. Wow. It should be reported, yeah. People asking why I'm eligible. Give me a break, guys. Come on. No, in all seriousness, I am in a situation where I am at risk of transmitting COVID to an immunocompromised person. And also with some significant travel coming up, I qualify as being both at risk of transmitting and getting COVID because of where I'm going to be going. So, yeah. And now I hope people know, like, the 3rd doses are basically available to anyone who wants them, just so people know. But yes, I am in situations where both transmitting and at increased risk for contracting due to different... Whoa.
Defense. Present, represented by counsel.
So we're going to watch a little bit of the Ahmaud Arbery trial. For contrast, in 25 minutes, the Rittenhouse thing continues.
Officer asks if you could just come forward. All right, we've got the witness back. Officer Asher, I remind you you're under oath. All right, let's go get the jury.
So, in my opinion, this is a judge that seems somewhat connected to reality. I haven't watched all of this to know for sure whether the judge is not doing some wacky stuff. He may be. But compared to what we've seen in the Rittenhouse trial, it's night and day. I also want to say thank you to Paul Osidik and Ben Rowe for signing up on my website using the coupon code Uncharged Pickles.
Uncharged Pickles.
You are new members 14 and 15 today. Did you see the Judge Asian food comment? Yeah, we reviewed it earlier. Judge's material today, How to Butcher a Murder Trial by Chef Medico. David, thanks so much for the extra content. Also, the Minnesota accent is worse than the Wisconsin accent. Okay, that's an opinion. That's an opinion.
All right for the jury.
This is a pretty scuffed courtroom, I have to say. It looks more like a basement conference room. I'm banning people almost faster than I almost can't keep up with how quickly we have to be banning people. It's wild. Oof, that's a cough. That's a serious cough. By the way, are there just no more masks in courtrooms anywhere? This is in Georgia, right? And then the Rittenhouse is in Wisconsin. There's just no more masking? Thanks to Walter Franco for signing up on my website. Thank you, Walter. Pleasure having you here. Pleasure to have earned your support, sir. And don't worry, we're watching the Rittenhouse.
Right,
it's
back,
starting soon.
Excuse me. We are ready to proceed with the evidence in the case. Mr. Ribben.
Good morning, Officer Rash. Officer Rash, I want to go back through your direct examination and some of the things you've described for the jury. You talked about initially kind of Satilla Shores as a neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me that Satilla Shores is a nice middle-class, scenic neighborhood on the Little Satilla River?
Yes.
And you described the folks who live there as primarily elderly, right?
Yes, sir.
There are some people who have kids.
Yes, sir.
They play outside.
Yes, sir.
The adults walk the streets, work in their yard, and enjoy the river.
Yes, sir.
You've been patrolling that neighborhood for how long?
7, 8 years, maybe.
Okay. And you've gotten to know quite a few of the residents through your work, for instance, canvassing the neighborhood.
Yes. This attorney sounds like Lindsey Graham and looks like that college basketball coach, Roy. Somebody remind me, you guys know who I'm talking about, right?
Some of the posts, some of the times on the page.
Yes.
And this Facebook page is actually a pretty good tool for you, isn't it?
It can be, yes.
Because people on Facebook will post about crime in the neighborhood.
Yes.
They'll post about
Roy Williams.
fears about crime in the neighborhood.
Yes.
They'll post about their suspicions about crimes in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And how often would you say you review the Facebook page in Satilla Shores?
Only when I knew that there was something going on. If I knew there was an incident today, then I would go today or tomorrow start looking to see what people would post.
Okay. So we're talking about today, this time period between October 25th, 2019 and February 23rd, 2020. During that time period, approximate for the jury how many times you looked at the Facebook page to see if this black male was seen, the one seen at Larry English's house, was seen by other neighbors or talked about by neighbors in the neighborhood.
I don't believe I could put a number on that.
More than 5?
More than 5, yes.
Okay. And in reviewing the Facebook page, did you learn about other crimes not committed by or suspected by the black male in the Larry English house, but by other people who were missing lawnmowers and suspecting other intruders and things like that?
No, I did not.
Okay. Are you saying there were no other posts, or you just don't recall them?
I don't recall any other.
Okay. You're not saying there weren't posts by people like Brandon Gregory's father-in-law? You're not saying, I'm just asking if you're saying that.
Well, hearsay and the Facebook posts there's nobody here to testify to those Facebook posts and putting it out there that, well, have you seen this and that? At this point, the Facebook posts are hearsay as to what anyone has said or did.
Well, I think we just have a name of a person that may have posted, so.
I'll rephrase.
See how the whole vibe in this trial is much more sensible and adult than what Schroeder's running?
Crimes or suspected crimes in the neighborhood?
I don't recall any specific, no, I do not.
Okay. In Satilla Shores lives one of your peers, Sergeant Brandon Gregory.
Yes.
You know Sergeant Gregory?
I know Sergeant Gregory.
Do you know Sergeant Gregory's father-in-law?
I do not know his father-in-law.
Okay. In canvassing the neighborhood, did you ever speak to Sergeant Gregory?
Sergeant Gregory, yes, I have.
Okay. And he gave you some information about his suspicions about the black male who was entering Larry English's house, correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay. In fact, we didn't see it, I don't think, on the video of February 11th, but he shows up on scene February 11th, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
And he provides you with information about a black male that he suspects is committing crimes in the neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay. Did you follow up on that in any way?
I did.
And turned out?
The elderly couple at the house where he saw them was an elderly black male and female that lived there, and neither one of them, I spoke to the male. The female was in the residence, but she was out of sight. They claimed they did not have any kids, any grandkids, and the male who answered the door did not recognize the male on the picture.
The picture that you were showing. I was showing. And that picture, to be clear, was a still of the October 25th video.
Yes, it was.
And that's the one that you used throughout.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's go back then to then what you knew about crime in the neighborhood during this time period. You were aware that Travis McMichael was a victim of a theft, correct?
Yes.
You were aware that Ronnie Olson was a victim of a theft.
Ronnie Olson?
Man who lived across the street. We see him saying, "I can light this place up."
Yeah, I know who Ronnie Olson is, but I don't recall any crime at his place.
Okay. Were you aware that Diego Perez was a victim of theft?
I was not aware of Diego Perez either.
Okay. So the only one you're aware of then is, just in that little part of the neighborhood, is Travis McMichael and Larry English.
That, and I would say the Herndon residence is that general area of the neighborhood.
And that's down Jones Road.
On Jones Road itself.
Do the Herndons live on Jones?
No, not on Jones. They live on Satilla Drive, the same as the corner of Satilla and Zellwood, the same as where Mr. English's property is.
Further up towards Highway 17.
Yes, sir.
Towards the entrance. Okay. So let's go back then to the beginning, which is October 25th, 2019.
Yes, sir.
There's a call from Larry English to Glenn County Police, and you get dispatched.
Yes.
And you get dispatched with other police officers as well, correct?
Yes.
An officer, and I may pronounce it wrong, Burgaitis, and an Officer Dixon.
Officer Dixon, yes.
Okay. And if you don't recall, I can show you these to refresh your memory. You go out there. The property that you're going to, is this your first time on the property?
First time, yes.
It's 10 o'clock at night.
Yes.
It's dark.
Yes.
You go onto this construction site, but it's a house.
Yes.
Under construction. And tell the jury what you did when you arrived on scene.
Without going back through my camera, I arrived on scene and walked through, checked the property for the individual that was called upon.
Okay. And you knew from the video, this is the clip, and I'm looking at State's Exhibit 121.
Yes.
You knew from looking at this clip.
I'm sorry.
You can answer that. You knew from looking at this clip that this is the clip Larry English sent you.
Yes.
And what you knew about the incident he's complaining about is there's a black male on his dock at 10 o'clock at night.
Yes.
A guy who has no authority to be there.
Yes.
And no legitimate reason that you know of to be there.
Exactly.
Okay. And so described by Mr. English as plundering around his...
Hey, Jabby, I just made you a moderator on YouTube. Appreciate the help.
You reviewed the video. Did you review it when you got on scene or before you got on scene?
Afterwards.
Afterwards.
I had him send it to me afterwards.
Okay. When you get on scene, the house is dark. Now, you described the black male as a light-skinned black male, but you understand that the color of his skin depends on the camera that's taking the picture.
Oh, my God.
I'm not all into the technology of infrared. Based on what I see there, that looks like a light-skinned black male.
Oh, my God.
What his natural skin looks like in daylight hours, I have no knowledge of that until video at a later time.
On February 23rd?
February 23rd.
And you've looked at that video?
We're going to have to look at the pixels, guys.
So the male's there on screen,
pixels?
in your video clip, but you get out there on scene without the clip and you go to the dock.
Yes.
You have your flashlight?
Yes.
You have your revolver?
Yes.
Is it out?
I don't believe it's out at that time.
Okay. Because No one's described anybody being armed at that point?
No, sir.
Okay. Go through the house?
Yes, we do.
Flashlight?
Yes, sir.
Because without that flashlight, it is pitch black in the house.
Yes.
Okay. You look around. You don't see anything of note, right?
No, sir.
You don't see anybody of note.
No, sir.
Okay. And you leave. And you file your police report, right?
Yes, sir.
But then you get the video clip, right?
Yes, sir. Well, I get it before I leave the property that night.
Okay, so you had it before you leave. Yeah. So just in case, as you're driving around the neighborhood, you see someone who fits that description.
Yes.
Okay. You understood also on October 25th that when he left Larry English's house, this unidentified...
For everybody just joining us, the Rittenhouse trial resumes in 15 minutes. We're just checking out the Ahmaud Arbery trial a little bit.
We have an issue we need to take up outside the presence of the jury.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could go ahead and retire the jury room.
It's all right for jury.
Wow. Chat's getting a little bit out of hand again. We may have to go member only again. It's getting pretty ugly. It's just like, why are these people flocking to my stream? These people are vile. I want to say thanks to Rhonda Flack, Cynthia Kelsch, and Fiona Haynes. The women are extremely overrepresented as new members during the streams, which is fantastic to see. We love it.
I don't necessarily know that he needs to step down for this.
Okay.
All right. Your Honor, Ms. Subi Lawrence was not at home on October 25th, and she then tells Diego Perez something, and then Diego Perez tells this officer something. I asked Mr. Rubin, are you going to go into this? Because it's hearsay within hearsay within hearsay, because Diego Perez is telling him something that Subi Lawrence said. And he said, no, I'm not going to go into that. And then you knew that he went towards Subi Lawrence's house. So the only way this officer would know that is if Diego Perez had told him that.
This is a good attorney.
And Subi Lawrence had told Diego Perez. So now we're into triple hearsay here. And, I mean...
Well, let's clarify.
So I didn't ask for any hearsay in that question. And the way and this is why I was asking, the way he knows he went towards Subi Lawrence's house is because Larry English made a second 911 call that's in evidence on October 25th saying he's going across the street to the whitish yellow house, and he went there. It's not hearsay. It's exactly what he did.
Okay, so I asked the question. So the question I thought was, and he ran to Subi Lawrence in the direction of Subi Lawrence's house.
Correct, and that's in the 911 call. He doesn't mention Subi Lawrence by name, but he describes the house, and in fact, Officer Ash went there.
Where did you learn that information?
I could not recall if it was actually from dispatch or while I was on scene.
This judge seems normal.
Diego Perez was out walking around that night, and until I did not know exactly did it come from dispatch or Subi Lawrence or from Diego Perez.
One or the other. Let's just clarify that, and we can move on from there then.
And I'm not asking what Diego said or anything like that.
Okay. That's not analogous. I mean, it could be one or the other.
And that was my concern. It's like we're going down this path where we're into triple hearsay, and I just want to cut it off before we get there.
Yeah, I'm not going to address anything then before the panel. I understand what the witnesses testified to, and there's the possibility of two different reasons for him having that knowledge. You're welcome to follow up on directly. All right, let's go get the panel.
The jury's coming back in. We are still covering the Rittenhouse trial, which will resume in 10 minutes. And today they're going to basically go over the jury instructions on what is self-defense, etc., that the jury will be given. So it's a very important day. Then deliberations will start Monday after the closing statements, but we're just keeping an eye a little bit on the Ahmaud Arbery trial for the time being.
He's not listening to 911 call. He's not the dispatcher who gets it from somebody else.
Thanks to Drew Stevens, by the way, who just signed up on my website. Drew, I really appreciate you doing that. You're new member number 20.
Mr. Rube, maybe you could just clear the whole thing up by asking him that question, where he learned that.
Okay.
How he knows that.
Okay.
All right.
Mike, the answer is, well, I don't know if I heard it from this guy or heard it from here. It's like now he doesn't know which hearsay source.
I can just ask him what he did.
Strike that. Let's not worry about it. Let's move on to whatever your next question is. Whatever he did becomes relevant.
That's what I was trying to get.
Judge seems to be in control.
All right, for jury, please. Please be seated.
Welcome back. All right. We've resolved the matters we need to resolve. We're ready to get back into the evidence. Mr. Rubin.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Officer Rash, after checking out Larry English's house, did you end up going over to Subi Lawrence's house?
I did.
And what did you do at Subi Lawrence's house? Tell the jury.
I went over and knocked on the door. I noticed that she had a black square camera on her front porch shining down towards the walkway leading up to the door.
Did you look around the house or just go to the front door?
I looked around. The rear of the property is fenced in, so I looked around the front yard and would be the left side, which faces Jones Road.
Okay. Didn't see the black male?
No.
By that point, did you already have this video clip? Do you know?
Would have to look at the time that was actually sent to my phone versus the time that I was over there.
When you went to Subi Lawrence's house, were you aware that Larry English had called back to the Gwinnett County Police Department describing where this man, in his perception, was going to?
Yes.
Okay. And so then you went to Subi Lawrence's house?
Yes.
Okay. While you were out at Subi Lawrence's house, did you see a man named Diego Perez?
Yes, I did.
And without telling us anything Diego Perez said, what was he doing out there?
Checking her property.
Okay. Do you know if he was armed?
I do not.
Okay. Did you ask him?
No, I did not.
Did he get in your way in any way?
No, he did not.
Okay. So he was looking around the property at about the same time you were looking around the property. Was he still in his boxer shorts?
I do not recall him being in boxer shorts.
Okay. Fully dressed?
I'm assuming, yes, dressed. Yes.
As far as you know?
As far as I know, he was dressed.
Okay. If I understand correctly, you received the next call to go out to Larry English's house on November 18th. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay. And that would have been your second time out there.
Yes.
Right? Did you, at the time you went out there on November 18th, have Larry English send you the video clips again?
Yes.
Okay. So when you went out there on the 18th, you knew you're looking for the same black male who's come back on this property.
Yes.
And this time, if you can play November 18th, and this is State's Exhibit.
Guys, people wondering what's going on. The Rittenhouse trial resumes in 7 minutes. We're just watching the trial over the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. Ahmaud Arbery is not on trial for just a few minutes.
Saw in the video clip the boat on the left-hand side of the video, right?
Yes.
That's not the boat where Larry English's electronics were stolen from.
No, sir.
That's a smaller, just boat for tooling around the river.
Yes, sir.
Not his offshore boat.
Yes, sir.
But you understood by the 18th, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he had a...
Incredible restraint by the judge here, not yelling at anyone yet or interrupting to talk about food.
I do not know the date and time that he called me and told me about that.
Okay. So it's possible that you went there on the 18th and still didn't know about items missing from Larry English's house.
Yes.
Pizza is here.
You went there on the 18th, and this time you're still with other officers.
Yes.
dark.
Yes.
You go into the scene. You have your flashlight?
Yes, sir.
You have your gun?
Yes, sir.
Is it drawn?
While we're checking, I don't recall.
Okay. Because at this point, you still have no information that this man is possibly armed.
No, sir.
Okay. No reason to worry about a threat at that point.
No, sir.
Okay. But it's now struck you that twice the same black male has entered Larry English's house.
Yes.
And didn't catch him.
Nope.
He's gone.
Gone.
By the time you get there, he's gone now twice.
Yes, sir.
How long does it take you, and believe me, I'm not criticizing you at all. You get the call, you go. How long does it take you to get there on these occasions, do you know?
That could vary very well. I mean, am I on another call? Do I have to finish up there? It could be, if I'm just out riding from the central location of my area, 4 to 8 minutes.
Okay. So within 4 to 8 minutes, at best 4 minutes, worst 8 minutes, the guy's gone.
Yes.
Okay. On the 18th, when you check out the property, and I assumed you checked out the dock area.
Yes.
There's a camper on the property, just like we saw on the 11th. You checked out the camper area. Mm-hmm. And he's got valuables stored at this property, right?
Yes.
It's got construction valuables.
Yes.
Saws and other tools, right?
Yes.
It's got
elements.
Boats that are valuable.
Yes.
Equipment within the boats that are valuable.
Yes.
He's got a camper that contains his belongings.
Yes.
It's his property, right?
Yes, sir.
Even though it's an open construction site, it's his property.
Yes, sir.
And he has a right to keep people on or off as he sees fit.
He does.
Okay. You're now there twice. You miss him twice.
Yes.
Do you know how he gets away on the 18th?
Other than walking away, that's it.
Okay. Do you do any other steps that night? Take any other steps to find the black male?
Just canvass the neighborhood.
Okay. When you say canvass, and this is on the 18th, are you just patrolling the neighborhood, or are you actually knocking on doors?
No, driving around, shining the spotlights.
Okay. Doing what you can to find this elusive black male.
Yes.
Okay. You get a call from Larry English on the 1st of December, but you're off duty.
Yes.
But he describes for you a suspect.
Yes.
Someone he thinks may be involved in the theft of the stuff from his boat.
Yes.
So is it fair to say to the jury that by December 1st, you know Larry English has been burglarized?
Objection to that characterization, because that's not at all what Larry English said or testified to.
Well, I'm asking this officer's perceptions at that time.
Relevancy as to this officer's perceptions at that time of what Larry English said. Larry English testified yesterday.
Whoa.
So go to speaking objections. Larry English has testified. His testimony is in the record. You're asking this witness what his recollection is and what it's based upon, as I understand it.
Correct.
Okay. With that, it's overruled.
Okay. By December 1st, 2019, you understood that Larry English was missing his Yeti cooler, right?
I knew he was missing a cooler. I didn't know it was a Yeti, but
okay.
Yes, a cooler.
We just gave a plug to Yeti. We wanted to do that. An EPIRB satellite system.
Yes.
And another piece of electronic, I think a microphone system.
Yes.
Okay. And you understood that the items were taken from the offshore boat that had been parked at Larry English's house.
Yes.
Right in the same area where this boat is now parked in State's Exhibit 123.
Yes.
Right, that RV garage.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Of course, you're off duty. Last thing you need is to get these calls.
All right, I'm going to step away from this because we are now going to be at the start of the Rittenhouse trial. I did just get one comedic element sent to me from the David Pakman Show subreddit that I think is pretty funny that I want to show you guys. What the Rittenhouse defense and judge were worried about if pinch to zoom were allowed. This is good. Oh, man. Oh, man. Could have changed the course of the entire trial. Yeah, so that's what they were worried about, and that's why pinch and zoom was such a controversial thing. Okay, we are now standing by for the start of the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, day 9. I do want to thank people who have been supporting the streams and signing up on my website. Those people, for now, are Joe Arena, Michael Wolfel, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Chris Brown, great to have Chris Brown here, Chris Baldwin, and someone who wishes to be known only as Sir, your wife is up in the air. That's 6 people signing up, putting us at 26. If you're just joining us, we have a new coupon code exclusive to today only. The code, as you can see above my head, is Uncharged Pickles.
Uncharged Pickles?
And that is live. It's a massive discount. And also, if and when we get to 50, the mustache will be locked in over the weekend, and I've promised that I will darken it by Monday's show. Okay? All right, good. I think we're on the same page as far as that goes. Okay, some people say stay on the Arbery case until this starts. All right, let's go. We'll go back to it a little bit.
To your frustration, no one knows this guy.
No, sir.
No one can tell you where he lives. No one even told you they saw him jogging in the neighborhood.
No, sir.
Right? Not a single person has seen him jogging that you talked to.
Now, I did not specifically ask, have you seen this guy jogging? But no one had seen him in the neighborhood, period.
Tell us about how many people, over the course of those months that you talked to about this, how many people did you talk to?
A dozen, 10 to 20 people.
Okay. You're showing people the stills, not from the November 18th, but the stills from October 25th video, or both?
I believe from the 25th. Stills from the 25th.
The guy on the dock?
Yes.
Okay. And you're letting them know that this is the guy seen up at 220 Satilla Drive.
Yes.
Some people might know Larry English, but I assume most did not know who he was.
I have no idea on that.
Okay. Did you ask people to review their surveillance videos to see if he might have been captured on certain dates on those videos?
I never encountered anybody that had video so yeah, no, I didn't ask anybody to review.
Okay.
They seem to be running very late in the Rittenhouse trial.
The next time you go out there is February 11th.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And February 11th is now your third time responding to Larry English's house.
I believe so, yes.
You're aware, though, that that other officers have been to Larry English's house, right?
Yes.
Are you talking to these other officers?
I have interacted a couple times, just passing on, like at the end of our shift, the beginning of the next shift, let them know, hey, be on the lookout, pass along to the next officer. I believe I called, it was Seth, Officer Powers, on the phone and passed on some information, because our briefings is we don't always see each other face to face. I would just call, hey, are you working Baker 9 tonight, or are you working Baker 9 today? Be on the lookout.
And Officer Powers is one of those officers who did respond to Larry English's house on the 17th of November.
I believe so, yes.
Right? When the white couple came to his house, you didn't respond.
Hey, people in the chat, I hate to break it to you, but if you're going to come here and say, David, you're an idiot, C-SPAN is better because no one's commenting, just go watch C-SPAN. What's the point of coming here at all? Just go to the stream you enjoy.
Michael's call.
Yes.
Were you aware when you got there, or on your way there, that the man who is now seen on the 11th of February is possibly armed?
At one point, Travis says that he was appeared to reach for his pocket or his waistband.
Mm-hmm.
I do not recall if that was relayed to me via dispatch while I was en route or once I arrived on scene.
Okay. So we saw a video, and this time you're not just going in with your flashlight. This time you got guns drawn. So does that help refresh your memory, if it does, of when you heard that the man in the house is possibly armed?
Yeah, I would say yes.
And what does your memory now tell you is when you learned that he was possibly armed?
We went in with our guns drawn based on that. The dispatch told us that he was possibly armed. That's why
a gun drone?
That's with our guns drawn while we searched the residence.
So this is a different situation. You're now going to a house and you might encounter a man who has a gun.
Yes.
Heart pumping?
Yes.
Adrenaline flowing?
Yes.
Okay. Now you got to be really on your toes.
Yes.
And we saw another officer with you. I think his name is Trenton, but
Trenton Sherman.
Officer Sherman.
Mm-hmm.
He's there with you.
Yes.
At some point, did you hear Officer Trenton say, and I'm just using the quote, if I misquote it, tell me, where you at, motherfucker?
I don't recall hearing that.
Okay. At this point, though, you're on heightened alert.
Okay.
Yes.
Here we go. So the Rittenhouse case is getting going. Critical day in the Rittenhouse trial, because this will be the defense and the prosecution arguing for the instructions they want given to the jury about the basis on which they are to decide guilt or innocence. This is an entire area of the trial in and of itself that is incredibly important. Okay, the jury has heard testimony and seen evidence, but they need to know how the law applies to it. And so this is going to be absolutely critical. And then closing statements will be Monday, and then the deliberation is going to start on Monday. I want to thank people who continue supporting the work that we are doing here. Logan Carlson just signed up on my website, joinpacman.com. Joseph Glenn is a new member. Daniel Cameron just signed up. Jennifer Nippenberg is a new member. Kyle Magdzak, I think is the pronunciation. Domi Watley and Susan Olivas have all signed up on my website.
Same appearances, except
Okay, hold on.
the jury's not here, and we're here to talk about instructions and verdicts.
Could you get on mic, sir?
And the district attorney has requested a. By the way, how are the calzones? Multitude of lesser included offenses. Are any or all of them opposed?
Judge, I'm looking at their, sorry. So, I have count one, just the first degree, I'm sorry, the first degree reckless homicide. I didn't see any lesser included on that.
They asked for 1020. Did you get their written request for instructions?
I did.
They asked for 1022. Oh, that was an email last night. Did you get that?
I did.
Okay, they asked for 1022, which is not the standard for first degree reckless homicide. It's the standard for first degree with a lesser included of second.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not asking for that, but I understand the court may get it.
Okay. Are you objecting to its giving?
Yes.
Want to discuss it briefly, or just impose or argue, object for the record?
I guess I would just object for the record, Judge.
Okay. All right, then. I'm not going to decide right now because I just got your filing this morning, which was sent to the clerk in Kenosha. They sent them to me directly and I know you're not familiar with that procedure. So let's take a break. Lunch is here. And actually, I wish less people had my email right now. But I think that's probably a common feeling. I will. What I plan to do is to send at some point tomorrow. I will send you what I expect to deliver as the final instructions and verdicts, and I would given the evidence, I'll leave it at pizza is here. And then we probably will have what I hope will be a brief discussion on Monday about it, and at least you'll have the food is here. Whatever you do, make sure you go to the bathroom somewhere other than the courtroom.
That was the craziest moment. Don't use the courthouse as a bathroom, he told him. What a judge.
I guess I will talk about it for a minute. The difference between first and second degree, and you're asking that I submit second degree, and it's in the instruction itself on the bottom of, I don't want to say bottom because I don't have them displayed as they would on the page, but on the instruction you've requested, which is 1022, under the heading difference between first and second degree reckless homicide. It says the difference between first and second degree reckless homicide is that the first degree offense requires proof of one additional element, that the circumstances of the defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life. Then, of course, the standard for submitting the lesser is that there's ground in the evidence to acquit on the greater and still convict on the lesser. Where's the absence of evidence of utter disregard for human life?
Judge, there was a line of questioning on the cross-examination of the defendant in which Attorney Binger asked, I believe in regards to each person shot or shot at, except for that of Mr. McGinnis, I suppose, if the defendant, I can't remember the exact wording, but if he even cared if he killed the person alluded to. So I believe that the defendant denied that he said he had to shoot him. He denied that he did not care about their life. So I believe the jury could find, based on that line of questioning, as well as just the evidence in general, that the defendant did not have an utter disregard for human life.
Be right back.
As he testified, he testified that he essentially had regard for human life because he felt he had to do it, and he didn't really want to kill anyone.
Well, let's hear from the defense.
Judge, element 3 is the circumstances of the conduct showed the utter disregard for human life. And in terms of the evidence in the case, I think the testimony was he didn't want to have to do it, but he did it to defend himself. So, as I said in our instructions, I don't think that there has been any evidence offered which would support the lesser included on count 1. So I would ask the court give 1020, which is the first degree reckless homicide charge, along with the self-defense instruction, and that'd be that, because I think that's what the evidence shows.
I'm going to do a colloquy with your client when we get done with all this. And don't let me forget, please.
I've discussed it with him.
Yeah, but I had to talk to him personally. the instructions says, in determining whether the circumstances of the conduct, and that's a correct point, the conduct showed utter disregard for human life, consider these factors: what the defendant was doing. He was firing a gun into, let's see, this is count one, so we're talking about Mr. Rosenbaum. He's firing a firearm 4 times into a human being with fatal consequences. Why he was engaged in that conduct, how dangerous the conduct was, well, that's self-evident. How obvious was the danger, that's self-evident. Whether the conduct showed any regard for life, and all facts and circumstances. I don't see it, and I don't see it. Help me out where I'm going wrong.
Well, Judge, he was asked if he, not only did he, how he felt about killing them, but if he knew that his conduct would have killed him, and that firing that gun would have killed someone.
This element is on first degree, which is what we're not talking about, is whether he knew or was practically certain, and we're talking about reckless endanger or reckless homicide. So, I mean, to fire a gun 4 times into somebody, you don't think you'd know or have or be practically certain that that could have fatal consequences?
I would, but the defendant denied that it would.
He didn't. I didn't hear him deny it. He said he was protecting his own life. I thought he was, when he was being asked repeatedly, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was asked repeatedly questions along the line that you indicate, and he responded, "I was trying to defend my life."
He was also asked the line of questioning, you knew if you shot 4 shots that you would kill him, and he denied that he would have that knowledge. So I mean, I agree that, I mean, I obviously think that it's utter disregard, because that's what we charged it as, and that's what we have presented to the jury, but I believe a reasonable jury and a reasonable juror could, based on the defendant's own testimony, not find utter disregard for human life. And that's the standard, not what we think, but what a juror could do.
I wish I knew the exact answers that were given. I'm not sure, and I when I say that, it doesn't mean I'm embracing your interpretation of what that would mean, but it I would want to be sure exactly what was said anyway. So, are you able to identify when in the examination? Because you had a very lengthy examination.
Check my notes.
And, you know, unless it's crystal clear, my suspicion would be if it turned out that the defendant would be acquitted, well, not acquitted, but if the jury returned a verdict on second-degree reckless endangerment with this description of what constitutes the crime, if they returned a guilty verdict over the defendant's objection, I would expect to be reversed.
On second-degree reckless endangerment?
Yes. Homicide, I'm sorry.
So, you're saying if the jury finds the lesser
On this charge,
and the defendant objected,
over the defendant's objection,
and you accepted it,
right?
you felt it be reversed?
Yes. Unless you can come up with this crystal clear language that the defendant, and again, we're back to the circumstances of the defendant's conduct showed utter disregard for human life. So I think his thoughts on the subject would be relevant, would be a legitimate factor. But
it seems crazy.
When I consider the others, what he was doing, firing into somebody 4 times, why he was engaged in it, there was dispute about that. But either it was but we have Subway tomorrow. Any circumstances, and except under privileged circumstances, how dangerous it was, how obvious was the danger, and whether the conduct showed any regard for human life.
I would love for a lawyer to clarify, but my impression is that the judge is making it difficult to include the ability for the jury to say not guilty here, but yes on a lesser charge that's part of this charge overall.
About his intent. What was the question you're saying again?
There was a line of questioning on if he cared about killing someone or cared in that regard. And there's a line of questioning is you knew that firing the gun could cause death, and I believe he denied or indicated he didn't know.
I don't remember that. Did
everything that he said. I mean, the reality is, everything was an intentional act. Now they haven't charged it that way, and I appreciate that. But looking at the definition of utter disregard under the statute, I'm not going to repeat. I'm going to hold the same ground that you've already done.
How dare Binger wear a tan suit?
Evidence that the man grabbed the barrel of the gun. So we're talking about a distance of inches, not always feet, but in some situations, inches. It is the only logical conclusion would be that a person would believe that conduct, if they were convicted, would show an utter disregard for human life. If self-defense isn't accepted, there's no other reasonable conclusion that can be drawn from firing a gun somewhere between 1 and 4 feet, all the way down to inches by the soot on his hand. So I think that's what the evidence showed, and I think that's really the only evidence regarding the utter disregard portion of the statute. So
if the defense is willing to stipulate to the third element, then that's fine. We can go with that way, but it seems they're not arguing it, and if we want to go that way, then we can.
Conversations with lawyers are always interesting.
Oh my God.
Uncharged piccolos?
And if they're not willing to stipulate, then obviously there must be some disagreement, or they must be trying to argue it. So I believe that there is a basis. I cannot recall at this moment precisely where in the cross-examination it occurred. Obviously it was lengthy, and I wasn't the one conducting it.
The examination, as I recollected, was that the defendant was repeatedly asked about the question about his thoughts on the subject of the death or survival of the target. And invariably responded that he was trying to defend himself and that he'd be killed if he didn't. And if anything, I would interpret it as an indifference towards the outcome with respect to the target.
Wow. Why is the judge even weighing in on this?
To utter disregard.
Right. Right. So if he's indicating he has an indifference, that would be second-degree reckless homicide.
No, it would be one factor, and I don't, even if I granted what, I just don't think it's appropriate. And as I'll repeat my statement.
Wow.
If I were to give this instruction over the objection of the defense and the jury found a verdict on it, I would expect to be reversed.
Well, are we in agreement that element 3 is present?
Well, don't ask me. I'm not in a position to agree to anything. I'm not going to give that instruction. Or submit that verdict. 1345 and 1347.
Is the judge negotiating a plea agreement?
Endangerment. By the way, how are the calzones?
So it's essentially the same issue.
Yeah, it is. So,
oh God.
Any additional argument on that?
And it would be the same for count 3 as well. Well, counsel raised a good point to me that he claims he didn't even know Mr. McGinnis was there, so he's firing a weapon he admits does not know the capabilities of. He admits he doesn't know how the bullets can react, that he did not know a full metal jacket could pass through his target, and he's really showing utter disregard for anyone in the line of fire as he fires 4 shots, including Mr. McGinnis. There's also bystanders. There's a house directly behind Mr. McGinnis. So I believe in firing 4 shots in a somewhat, I would say, wild manner. He is showing that there could be an argument that he says he didn't. I believe, again, that it's utter disregard, but a jury could find, because he did not know Mr. McGinnis was there, that he was not showing utter disregard for Mr. McGinnis's life, and that the second degree endangerment would be more appropriate.
Obviously.
Just give me 1 second here, Judge.
Thanks to Christopher Webb and Dunning-Kruger for signing up on my website, joinpacman.com. Appreciate that very much. Numbers 34 and 35.
Stems from, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, because it stems from the actions involving Mr. Rosenbaum, which this court believes the proper instruction deals with the utter disregard for human life of Mr. Rosenbaum. Those actions, to me, are intertwined with the charge involving Mr. McGinnis.
No, I don't think so, because I think the instruction anticipates that he could have utter disregard for could have utter disregard for the life of Mr. Rosenbaum, but still be sufficiently aware to realize the risk to Mr. McGinnis, and then he, under the law, as I read it, he would have the obligation to exercise his conduct in such a way as to minimize the risk to Mr. McGinnis, whether privileged or not. He would, let's talk about his conduct being purposeful, even though it's not charged. If he intended to kill Mr. Rosenbaum, and whether he was justified in that or not, he's still required to execute his intentions in a way with the minimal, or to minimize the risk to Mr. McGinnis. So and that's a jury determination, I'm not suggesting I would want to be in that position, who would, but he would have to decide, well, I've got to kill this guy, but I've got to do it in such a way that I don't hit anybody else. That's really what the jury's being asked to determine.
Wow.
And there are instances that you could imagine where the person actually would have freedom of choice, and
the judge is like introducing new considerations and hypotheticals.
Most self-defense circumstances.
Guys, just so you know, the jury's not here. The jury's not here. I see people saying, how is the jury? The jury is not even in today.
Although for an intentional, then he'd be guilty because he intended to kill someone else.
And here's my only argument is, I think the testimony was the bullet that has endangered McGinnis passed through Rosenbaum, right?
Can you imagine?
Rosenbaum was shot, there's 5 wounds with 4 shots, so he didn't miss. So the reason that I'm kind of hung up on the utter disregard for Rosenbaum is if he would have missed, I suppose, and you could say that shot was a wild shot.
But he was using steel-jacketed ammunition.
Bullets are bullets, Judge.
No. I'm picking at hairs because that's what we lawyers get paid to do. But and of course, if we were in the jury room and we'd laugh at each other for the things that are being said. In the eyes of the jury,
what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Theoretically, like how many angels fit on the head of a pin, they could theoretically think, well, it does make a difference because he wasn't using expanding ammunition. He was using a full metal jacket, and he should have foreseen that it might have gone through and that it would endanger someone else.
The defendant also denied knowing he was there, so the jury could very easily...
He did indeed. That was my next point.
My only argument, Judge, was that if he's using utter disregard, or the jury believes there's utter disregard as it relates to Mr. Rosenbaum, the charge as it relates to Mr. McGinnis directly relates to the bullet that went through Mr. Rosenbaum's hand or head or whatever it is, right? So that's why I'm saying if it's that for Rosenbaum, it has to be the same for McGinnis, only because there's not a wild shot. He didn't miss. He wasn't spraying. Nobody's alleged anything like that.
You could say that in your argument, couldn't you?
If
I left this on their verdict and you had to argue it, you could say.
I certainly could.
Pardon me?
I said I could.
The evidence does show that he essentially missed the third or fourth shot. There's a graze wound that then traveled who knows where, possibly towards Mr. McGinnis. So this is not as though all four bullets entered Mr. Rosenbaum. One skipped right by him and basically had a contact wound. And the defendant says he didn't think he was there. So a reasonable jury could find that how do you show utter disregard for Mr. McGinnis when the defendant claims he didn't even know he was there?
I'm going to think about this one. My inclination at this moment, to repeat my former statements that have caused some consternation, my bias would be in favor of submitting that verdict and giving this instruction. But if it shows up on your doorstep, your email doorstep tomorrow at some point, and it isn't in there, don't be terribly surprised. All right.
What the hell?
Count 4.
So count 3, it's essentially the same issue, except obviously this time the defendant knew he was there. I'll essentially make my arguments that I believe firing 2 shots, missing, a reasonable jury could find that he was not showing utter disregard. He only fired twice instead of 4 times. He did not fire into the individual after already striking him twice, as he did with Mr. Rosenbaum. He did not continue to fire. So I believe the mere fact that he fired twice and did not hit a reasonable jury, and again, we believe that first degree is the most appropriate charge, but a reasonable jury could find that because he stopped firing, he was not showing utter disregard.
We are talking now about a jumpsuit. Jump kick.
For blue hoodie man.
A jumpsuit.
What do you call him?
Blue hoodie man.
Blue hoodie man.
Oh, touched it.
Did you want to respond?
Yeah. It's the first time I've ever heard that missing someone when you're firing from point blank range means that you're not showing an utter disregard for human life. So he fires Judge, he's on top of him when he kicks him in the face, and you saw the shots. It is difficult to ascertain an argument that a jury would believe because he stopped shooting or missed from point blank range with an AR-15 that he wasn't showing utter disregard for human life. I don't think that's a logical argument. I think the appropriate instruction is 1345. They're either going to accept that it was self-defense in that or they're not. But to say point blank range, 2 shots on a man jumping on you.
The defense, I think, is rightly picking up on the fact that some of these, including some of these lesser charges, would not be good for Rittenhouse because self-defense aside, it could get him convicted on lesser charges, given the circumstances.
The standard for the lesser included, I think, is still there is ground in the evidence for acquittal on the greater and conviction on the lesser. The same set of facts. What's the difference between what you're charging and the lesser?
I've stated what I think the difference is. My worry is that the defense, I've asked now a couple times if they're just going to agree that there's utter disregard, and they have not agreed to do that, is that they're going to get these instructions and then argue it in their closings, and then we are stuck. So I would like some sort of limitation.
Why wouldn't they argue in the closings what the instructions are?
That they will argue that there's not utter disregard. That they will argue the opposite of what they're saying now.
No, I'm not hearing that.
What hasn't happened yet?
Well, then why not agree to it? If they are agreeing that there's
they'd be nuts. That's why. How would that be?
What's that?
They'd be nuts. Why in the world would they concede on an element like that?
Oh my
God! Well, they're conceding it right now.
No, they're not. They're discussing it for purposes of whether or not the lesser included should be given. They're saying they're not conceding all your evidence. They're saying it's hard to believe that this would constitute or not constitute utter disregard for human life. Let me repeat the question I just asked you.
He seems to basically be saying if we include that, he's going to be found guilty because he obviously did it. The disregard part.
Jump kick me. The video is claimed to depict that he kicked the accused in the head. That the accused turned and fired at him twice and missed. On what ground could they convict him of the lesser without having convicted him of the greater?
Well, I'll stand by the prior arguments of the defendant's own statements, and also I think it does make a difference that he shot 4 times at Mr. Rosenbaum after he was already crumpling to the ground. The fatal shot was as he was falling to the ground, and he stopped shooting at the man in the blue hoodie. And again, I think the first degree is the appropriate charge, but I think a reasonable jury can say, why did he stop firing? Why didn't he, fire at him as he went away? I feared he might come back and run at him. So I believe a reasonable jury could find that. And frankly, if the defense in their closing argument tries to quibble with the utter disregard, I don't know if it's precedent for it, but I think we're going to ask for lesser includeds after that, because we're going to ask for lesser includeds after that. If they're admitting here that there's no way a reasonable jury could find otherwise, if they're agreeing to that, that's one thing. But
if they're agreeing to that, then
right. I think Graham, who I believe is the attorney from the other day, is saying juries love to split the baby. If I have an all or nothing defense, I don't want to give the jury options. Right. So the prosecution seems to rightly be realizing that if they include these lesser charges, the probability for a conviction on some of the later counts and lesser charges on the main counts becomes much more likely. The defense seems to be realizing the same thing, which is why they're arguing against it.
Firing a gun at a human being.
Yes.
He hasn't alleged that he wasn't firing at him. He wasn't saying I was just trying to scare him off with a couple of shots across his bow. He didn't say that. Why he was engaged in it, and he's given his reasons, and I don't think the state disputes them. He was doing it to prevent the man from attacking him, and the state says the man had the right to attack him, and the defense said he didn't. Either way, he was doing it for what he was doing. It was purposeful. How dangerous was the conduct? Well, the defense is not disputing it wasn't dangerous behavior. I don't think they're going to argue that.
Oh, man.
How obvious was the danger?
The defendant denied that it was obviously dangerous. He said he did not know if it was going to kill him. He did not know that he denied knowing or that his bullets were more dangerous than other types of bullets. He denied knowing that his gun was more powerful than other guns. So, again, I think the evidence most fits
I don't think that is exactly.
It is exactly what it was.
Exactly what was stated. For example,
It
the
was.
discussion about what kind of guns are more powerful. That wasn't actually. I was kind of intrigued about it because it was a close contact, and the suggestion was being made by the questioner, Mr. Binger, that the rifle is because it's a more powerful weapon was more dangerous or something to that effect. And of course, in a close contact situation like that, it may be that the pistol is a much more desirable weapon. But I thought that discussion was focused on that type of issue rather than your claim that the defendant was suggesting his weapon wasn't dangerous? That it wasn't obvious? The danger wasn't obvious?
The judge isn't even pretending anymore.
Judge, in his testimony, the defendant said, essentially, I was in fear for my life, but I didn't mean to kill him.
Is that what he said, or did he, when he was asked, did he mean to kill him, he said, I was just trying to defend my life, or words to that effect?
He said, I did not want to kill them.
Did he? I don't remember. Mr. Binger says yes. Mr. Krause says yes.
He said,
I think that's fair. At some point or another, he did say he didn't want to kill anybody. That's true.
That night.
But that's not the element. If if we're a first degree, then that'd be another matter. This is reckless endangerment.
We're talking about the defendant's mind and if he had utter disregard.
No, we're talking about how obvious was the danger.
Wow. The judge is committed to not allowing the lesser charges.
Evidence has shown utter disregard. What we're fighting about is that it's not.
I'm still struggling with what is the basis upon which the jury could acquit of the greater and convict of the lesser, because that's the standard.
If they believe the defendant, they have a basis for the lesser included. There is a basis. If they accept the defendant's testimony,
I didn't want to kill anyone?
That I didn't want to kill anyone, that he bought the gun because it was cool.
I might even buy into that. I might. Except that would be if we were talking about a charge of count. 4. Because intending to kill is not an element.
Does he ever interrupt the defense?
But it shows whether or not he utter disregard, if he's firing and not considering.
You're getting to the ultimate fact. I'm telling you what the factors are and determining whether there's utter disregard, and you're telling me that one of the factors to be considered on whether it's utter disregard is utter disregard. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, like I said, I believe the defendant's testimony gives a reasonable jury a basis to find a second degree.
I don't. So
wow.
I will not give that instruction.
Wow.
Or submit that verdict.
That's terrific for the defense. Thanks to the judge, right? I mean, wow.
And the reason is because I do not feel there is a basis in the evidence for acquittal on the greater and conviction on the lesser.
When it's good for the jury, when it's good for the defense, let the jury decide. When it's not good for the defense, he'll decide. I want to say thanks to Damian Kazakovitz, who made a pledge via Patreon. Patreon counts double today. That gets us to 37. Also, thanks to Andrew Boyer, Kathleen Carolyn, and Kyler Gilbank
for 1017, which is
for signing up on my website. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
3 lessers. First, you're asking for first degree intentional. You're asking for second degree intentional, or.
Okay, for this super chat, you don't need my permission to quote things that are public. You don't need to ask me for permission on that.
So, now give me the bases for acquittal on each of the greater crimes and conviction of the lesser?
Well, with first-degree intentional homicide, obviously there's a self-defense. The jury could find imperfect self-defense and find second-degree intentional homicide, that if he did not reasonably believe the force, if it was not reasonable for the amount of force used. The defendant, again, while testifying, said he did not mean to kill Mr. Huber. So they could find from that alone that there is not an intent at all and go to the first-degree reckless. And then we're left with the argument that we've been having all morning thus far, which is whether a second-degree reckless showing utter disregard would be appropriate. The defendant said he didn't mean to kill him. The defendant gave his reasons why he thought he had to shoot him. But again, I believe he indicated he denied that he knew it would kill him. And essentially it's the same argument that's been being made all morning. But I think it's quite clear that in a self-defense case, second-degree intentional is appropriate because the jury could very easily find in this case that it was not perfect self-defense. As a person who is running at him, being told or perhaps even witnessing himself that the defendant has already shot someone, gravely injured them, has already shot at another person missing, and then gone in to try and disarm him, the jury could find that it was not perfect self-defense.
Are you disputing that?
No, first and second.
First and second,
no.
Intentional are okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the reckless, the defendant testified directly that he did not intend to kill him.
Any dispute as to first-degree reckless?
No.
Okay. All right, any objection to second-degree reckless?
For the exact same reasons that we had talked about, Mr. Huber, I'm sorry, Judge, if you already...
No, that's all right.
Mr. Huber has the evidence was a rifle pointed up against his chest.
I didn't hear you.
He has a rifle, according to the evidence, he has a rifle pointed literally up against his chest. So the idea, under those circumstances, that having an AR-15 pointed buttressing up against your chest would not be utter disregard for human life if believed, to me that's where it begins and ends. There is no other explanation. So I think first degree, second degree lesser included, first degree reckless are all appropriate. Second degree reckless doesn't fit.
Did you want to respond?
I'll just stand on my arguments before. This afternoon we may review the defendant's testimony, and if I find a specific thing that I think changes it, will obviously contact the parties.
Okay. I embrace the argument of Mr. Sharafsi. And count 5, you are, and that is the shooting of Mr. Grosskreutz, and that is charged as intent to kill?
Correct.
Okay.
So the instruction I requested is attempted first and then attempted second for very much the same reasons as Mr. Huber, that a reasonable jury could find imperfect self-defense, as Mr. Grosskreutz was actually facing away from the defendant when he fired. And then the next lesser included, if they don't find intent, is the first degree reckless endangerment. So I've requested that, and then obviously I've requested secondary reckless endangerment, which we've rehashed a few times now.
Defense?
Judge, I don't have an objection to the lesser included on the second degree attempt. It's the same argument. The court heard the evidence. In the distance, Mr. Grosskreutz testified that he was about 3 feet away, whatever it was, from him when he was shot. The gun, Mr. Grosskreutz pointed the gun at the defendant. Mr. Rittenhouse then fired. So I think that first degree, attempted first degree, well, you can't attempt a reckless act, right?
I would have told you, I would have agreed with you some years ago, but I'm not sure about.
I've attempted reckless acts myself now.
I'm going to have to hit the books on that.
With the calzone.
By the way, that was certainly once the law.
I would have. You either are, to me, you're either reckless or you're not reckless. So I would object to any recklessness because I don't think you can attempt a reckless act. So I'll leave it at that and let the court ponder that.
Well, the defendant did testify that he didn't want to kill anyone.
I understand that. But I think somebody would say the behavior is either reckless or it's not. I don't know how you can attempt to be reckless or attempt to be negligent. I don't know how you can do those things.
Judge, if I may respond, I mean, we just basically agreed on the account by Mr. Huber that reckless homicide was appropriate. Mr. Grosskreutz did not die, so the appropriate charge at this point would be the first degree recklessly endangering safety. The jury could easily find that the defendant intentionally shot Mr. Grosskreutz, which is not, I guess, in dispute, but that he did not mean to kill him. The defendant said multiple times, "I did not want to kill anyone." The jury could also find that shooting someone in the arm, if they find that was where the defendant was aiming, would not be intent to kill, but it would be recklessly endangering his safety. If the jury does not obviously find that it was perfect self-defense.
Is it a lesser included?
Yes.
Statutorily?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because otherwise, why couldn't they convict him of both? But why get into a discussion we don't need to resolve?
How reckless was his mom in bringing him to this insane fiasco?
I don't know. I'm going to think about this one. I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Krause. The food is here? Okay.
Good point, Justin. Yeah. David attempts reckless acts all the time with his coupon code.
On count 6, we are not requesting any recklessly endangering safety charges, so we can skip that argument.
Bless your soul. Now, the defense has submitted, and I don't think you submitted anything standard, except the standard on that.
Our position is they've never raised the affirmative defense. So that's why we need to do it.
At the trial.
Correct.
Let's see.
And obviously they can argue otherwise, but that's why we did not prepare one. Obviously they can argue otherwise, but that's why we did not prepare one.
Quick thanks to Daniel Colavecchio and John Newman for signing up on my website, joinpacman.com. Appreciate that. Puts us at 42. We're getting close to the mustache surviving to Monday, which means it will get darkened in.
Evidence, correct me if I'm wrong, as to the third element of the second defensive matter, which you cite on the second page, on the third page. Item number 3 on the third page. I don't recall that evidence.
I would agree there was no evidence that he...
Then how can I give that instruction? Oh, because they have the burden of proof.
It's not a strict liability offense.
Yeah,
He's 17 years old.
Yeah, if there's an absence in the evidence, that's kind of a problem for you, no?
What do you mean?
You would need to disprove the affirmative defense.
We don't believe it was ever raised. They never gave any evidence as to barrel lengths or that it
Oh, yes, there was definitely barrel length evidence.
On cross-examination of a state's witness.
Whenever it happened, it was there.
And
Well, now I'm not sure. There was evidence of the length.
Man, this guy is just the worst.
Measured the length of the portal. That
I asked Detective Andrew.
did you?
Yep.
Assuming that to be true, then that would. And that was less than. Excuse me. It was the barrel length was greater than 16 inches.
Sorry.
Wait a minute. Either the barrel length was less than 16th or the overall length was less than 26. That was in the evidence?
What I asked him was there any did he believe, I want to make sure I have it right so I don't misstate it. Did he believe that the barrel length was in violation of the law?
What law? Uncharged. I don't know what laws there are.
The possession of a short barrel shotgun or short barrel rifle.
That's the only.
That's the law. You can't
Okay,
have a
you're
gun.
talking
that's-
about, okay,
yeah.
okay.
And that's built into
Okay,
this
well,
instruction.
he certainly, come on, it's not a strange issue in this case. I mean, we've been talking about it for months.
Well, and I agree with talking about it for months, and the defense should have measured the barrel in front of the jury and said the
You
barrel.
have the burden of proof.
That they didn't. If they raise it, they never raised this issue.
Well, did he ask the?
Hey, Graham, can you comment on that? In any affirmative defense, does the burden of proof not shift to the defense? Is that not the way it is?
What do you call it? Claim of.
In other words, if they're like, yes, he did do the killing, but it was self-defense, isn't it not incumbent on the defense to prove that it was self-defense?
There was a violation of the law as it related to the barrel length.
That goes to his belief in what, and they never specified which law.
They have to raise the issue.
I understand, and I don't believe that they have. And there's no testimony on the authorization, the certificate of accomplishment to obtain authorization for hunting. There's no evidence on whether or not he has a certificate of accomplishment to obtain authorization for hunting, which is the state's position all along, is that he would have to have that.
Well, they're claiming it's in the alternative.
And the state has always claimed that it is not. So we're back at, well, if the court finds they raised it, which I don't believe asking a general question on the belief of a detective, that is not evidence, the belief of someone.
Well, is it a belief or an observation?
The way Attorney Trossi just said it was belief. We'd have to get the exact question, but I don't believe.
The exact question may become important.
So I don't believe that is raising it. And the defense had every opportunity. They brought the gun over here most every day the last few days. They could go to any number of witnesses to measure it and raise this issue, and they did not.
They don't have to measure it. That's the burden of proof it's on the state.
I understand that, but it wasn't raised. Is our
Well, if he asked the officer, and I will have to see what the transcript says, if he asked the detective whether the rifle was compliant, or what are you claiming you said?
I asked him if there was, I know I asked him about it. The question I asked, I think I asked him something along the lines of, did you believe there was any violation for the barrel length of the gun?
That would put it in issue if the question is like that.
Well, also the statute reads, this section applies only to a person under 18 years of age who possesses or is armed with a rifle or a shotgun if the person is in violation of section 941.28 or is not in compliance with the two sections mentioned. So it's an or, it's not an and. We don't have to show all three. So they may have raised the issue with...
You have to show one of the three. You have to show one of the three. No. What am I saying?
No, we have to show...
You have to show any of the three which the defense has put in issue.
Really confused,
The defendant
Judge.
has not put in issue the certificate of accomplishment.
Correct.
The defendant has put in issue the length of the barrel.
And Judge, we can unpack this for a minute. So the exception says it's a violation of the law.
Okay, let's see. We've got some commentary here. First, Ahmad al-Haytham says, only as to the defense itself, no other part shifts in the burden of proof. Then Graham says, who's a defense attorney, two kinds of burden of proof, production and persuasion. Self-defense has a burden of production, meaning the defense has to bring enough evidence to justify the instruction. Okay. Also, this is crazy. Xavier says, just attended court in a suburb of Wisconsin. Before court began, the judge gave an unhinged speech about how Fox News covers real news and how he basically thinks Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent. That's an appropriate speech for a judge to be giving in a different court.
Because he has to be in violation of both 29-304 and 29-304. 29593. I concede he's in violation of 29593. However, 29304, he's 17. It doesn't apply to him. It can't apply to him because of his age. We put in his age and we put in the barrel. That covers the first exception, and then it goes to or, and it covers the second exception as well. I provided the court, and I'm not rehashing it, that you had denied the motion for reconsideration. This statute doesn't apply to 16 and 17-year-olds, period. The legislative history that I provided to the court, it says it in black and white.
Well, I ruled as I did because the motion to dismiss attacks the complaint.
Understood.
And the complaint was adequately pled under the law. That was not an endorsement of the state's position on the case. And to use a trite expression, the rubber hits the road here at the trial. So now you have to prove everything that the statute requires. And do you dispute the fact that you need to prove that the defendant was under 18 at the time of the incident? You don't. That's not in dispute.
That he's under 18, yes.
And that the barrel length was less than that allowed by law, or was not within the range permitted by law.
We don't have to prove that.
You don't have to prove that.
But it's or. I mean, there's no real. Our argument is that they did not raise it. I don't think it's really a disputed fact, but we believe they did not properly raise this first part of the exception. The second part of the exception, they've conceded 29.5.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They've conceded the 29.593 portion. He did not have a hunting certificate. So then we go to 29.304, and if it is allowed that simply being 17, he is in compliance with that, it swallows the whole statute, and the statute makes no sense. So if the statute
makes no sense, you're out of luck.
Interruption.
If the statute is valid, it's clear as day that it says a person under 18
clear
years
as
of
day.
age.
I would not say that about this law.
Well, I would maybe not say that about the exception, but the actual law.
Can you imagine?
Sure. Any person under 18 years of age who possesses or goes armed.
That's not the whole statute.
Oh my God.
Our position is that he is not in compliance with 29.304 and 29.593. And I know that this was scoffed at when I mentioned it before, but 16 and 17-year-olds can hunt alone in this state if they have the correct certificate.
Okay.
Under 16 cannot, and that is what 29.304 is addressing. This statute is addressing hunting.
No, the basic law is that the rubric is not part of the statute.
The rubric?
The title.
The title is possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18.
It's not part of the statute.
Was he saying it is?
No, I learned it at an earlier time when we called it the rubric.
That's what the statute says, though. That's what it says in 2A.
The hell?
And the state's position is that he is not in compliance with those two, and that they have not raised the short barrel shotgun issue. The short barrel shotgun issue. But they don't really have to because they can try to raise the other part, but they have not done that either.
By his age, it's raised. On the second part. It's raised.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's it. And I just want to make sure I've been losing this argument. It's not, Judge, there are hunting portions of that statute, and there are just simple possession portions of that statute, of 29.304. I am not focusing, and I'm asking that it doesn't apply, the hunting part. If you read the Legislative Bureau, what it says is, if you're 16 or 17, there is an exception for you to possess a firearm.
It does say that.
Semicolon, done. It has nothing to do with hunting. Nothing.
My inclination now, once again, I'll tell you what I'm inclined to do. is to inform the jury let's see.
Thanks to Daniel Simmons for the Patreon pledge. That counts double today. Puts us at 44.
Yes.
Legislative history only becomes an issue when there's ambiguity. There's no ambiguity in 2A. It is very clear that 18-year-olds are not to possess dangerous weapons. So you interpret the statute in a way that makes sense. And the way that it makes sense is that simply because he's 17 does not automatically negate 2A.
I raised it earlier in the case. And it hasn't enjoyed a lot of discussion, and maybe I'm off the wall. I don't think so. The penal laws are construed strictly. Vague laws are... Who is that emperor from way back in history?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Posted the laws on pillars so high that the people couldn't read them. And that's been used by lawyers and judges for centuries. Obama! About the requirement that people be given knowledge of what the law provides. And the basic law, and it's chipped away a lot of times with the appellate court decisions that are made on the subject of efforts to preserve
How is this happening?
statutes, because some of them are quite messy. And that's not a criticism, that's a reality that judges have to deal with periodically. Most of the statutes are easily enough worked with. But the basic rule is that the ordinary people should be able to understand what their laws are, so they know what conduct is allowed and what isn't.
Uncharged.
And I've been wrestling with this, and now I know that there's a lot brighter judges in this world than me, but I've been wrestling with this statute for, I'd hate to count the hours that I've put into it. I'm still trying to figure out what it says, what is prohibited. Now, I have the good fortune of having some experience and a legal education. How is the ordinary citizen supposed to acquaint herself with what this law says?
Judge, there's testimony that the defendant, Mr. Black's stepfather, the defendant's mother, all knew he could not legally possess this gun. That's why he was kept up here. That's why Mr. Black bought it. This 2A is very clear.
For interpreting a penal statute?
I'm sorry?
Is that the standard by which the judges interpret a penal statute?
You just said it should be clear to normal everyday people, and it was clear to these normal everyday people. Because it's very clear that under 18 cannot possess a dangerous weapon.
They don't know the law. And he can't necessarily possess the gun in Illinois. We're talking about Wisconsin, and we're talking about the law, not what Dominic Black's father might think.
Obviously, we're responding to your...
Well, but the point is, if they put a sign out here, don't jaywalk over to the other side of the street. And that's a bad example because we know jaywalking is unlawful. Supposing they put a sign out there that said, don't use your cell phone while crossing the street. Now, if they adopt a law that says that, and people are, not, as I told the jury before, ignorance of the criminal law is not an excuse, so people are charged to know that, unless it's written on the top of a pillar so high people can't see. People, if they're given legal notice, that's why they publish them in the newspaper. If people are given legal notice of what's unlawful, then they can conform their conduct to the requirements of the law. If they don't know what the law is, then they're just herded into obedience of certain standards. Now, I don't know if that's the case with Dominic Black's stepfather or father or whatever it was, or the defendant's father or whatever. Whether they studied the law, they were familiar with what it says, or they were just afraid to break the law because they heard somewhere along the line that it was unlawful. Well, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to say, well, they should have guessed right. I can tell you I've put many hours into it, so have you. And how are ordinary people not supposed to know what they should be afraid might be against the law? How are ordinary people supposed to know what's against the law?
Because 2A is very clear.
I wish it were to me. I'm going to my intention is to instruct on what he's submitted, without page numbers, I might add. Looks like the third page that starts statutory definition of crime, and down to where it says or. So it'll be exception, the state must prove, etc. Then number 1, the defendant was under 18. Number 2, and that the dangerous weapon was either a rifle, etc. And you can search the evidence to find out if you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that's true, so that it can go to the jury. All right, now, is that it? Pizza is here.
The state requested the 805, 810, and 815, as well as 9.
Any dispute as to those?
805, no.
Okay.
810 and 815 are the retreat and provocation instructions, so yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I guess I would ask this first, Judge. As it relates to 815, which is the provocation instruction, is the state saying the presence of Mr. Rittenhouse there is in and of itself provocation?
No, we are saying that in the incident of Mr. Rosenbaum, he provoked it by raising his rifle and pointing it at individuals. So that is why Mr. Rosenbaum then gave chase to him. The defendant then had a duty to retreat. He retreated. Instead of giving notice of his withdrawal from the fight, he turned and pointed his gun again at Mr. Rosenbaum, an unarmed civilian, which he admitted he knew he was unarmed, and that continued. So, no, the provocation is not his mere presence. It's not his mere presence with a gun. We will argue that the video evidence, contrary to the defendant's testimony, shows that he raised his weapon at individuals, and that is what provoked the attack by Mr. Rosenbaum.
So, Judge, yesterday, obviously you know why we were fighting about what that enlarged photo, and I don't think that's I think that evidence is open to interpretation, certainly. I would argue to the court that while Mr. Krause can say that's what they believe it shows, I would submit to you that what the testimony is Mr. Rittenhouse is shortly before that yelling friendly, friendly, friendly. I think if you look at that picture that you saw yesterday, it's open to interpretation. We know he's wearing a strap from the harness over his shoulder. The other thing that if you look at the picture closely, he's standing like he would be firing or pointing that gun like he's left-handed. So if you look at the picture, his left foot is back, his right foot is forward, and he's open like you're looking at me now. So in every other instance where you observed a gun being fired, he's firing it from the right side with his strap as this gun hangs this way. Now they're saying that photo shows...
They're saying you just can't believe the video.
And picking the gun up and doing it left-handed. I think that photo is open to interpretation as to what it is. We believe that it shows a side mirror of the Duramax and part of his strap from his firearm, or from his sling. That's
oh my God.
I completely understand that. However, you also heard testimony that from this person who from the state crime lab who said he couldn't really answer, and I don't know what you thought of his testimony yesterday, but he really couldn't answer a lot of questions on, and that's why color was so important yesterday, on how the pixels work, and he couldn't say what color those
Uncharged
pixels add,
pixels?
and I think that's relevant. Now, it is our position, and I think the testimony supports the idea that Mr. Rosenbaum provoked the attack.
That Mr.
Rosenbaum provoked the attack. Mr. Rosenbaum, there's testimony from two people that Mr. Rosenbaum threatened to kill Mr. Rittenhouse if he caught him alone. You heard the testimony that Mr. Rosenbaum yelled, "Gun, gun, gun," and then you know what was said after that. He's chasing him down. He yells, there's been testimony that Mr. Rosenbaum yells, "F you," before this happens. Mr. Rosenbaum has a gun pointed at him in the parking lot and doesn't stop running toward Mr. Rittenhouse. And if you give 815, which is the provocation instruction, I would submit to you the only way that Mr. Rittenhouse then can be acquitted or found not guilty of the charge is, one, he exhausts every other reasonable means of escape. Two, he withdraws from the fight, and fight is the language in the instruction. And three, he provides, sorry.
Well, go ahead, finish, and then I'm going to tell you why I don't agree with what you're saying.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at 815, but
I'll interrupt you now and tell you.
Okay.
You said if I give that instruction,
Yes.
then the only way. No, the jury may not believe the predicate facts upon which the instruction is based. So he could be acquitted as long as the jury does not believe that the defendant's behavior was provocative.
That's the first line of the instruction.
Say that again?
That's the first line of the instruction.
What?
You should also consider whether the defendant provoked the attack. The defense is still able to give forward their version of events. We have multiple videos in addition to this photograph. And also a defense exhibit number 41, which has its circle on there where the defendant is raising the gun at someone in front of that Duramax. That's an exhibit they have gotten into evidence. So there really wasn't much dispute of this until a few days ago, and that's fine. They can dispute this fact. We believe it's very clear on video that the picture itself is just one little portion, but on that drone video, both the full version and the somewhat zoomed in version that has been provided, it's very clear. I saw it on my television at home immediately upon watching it. So that's our argument, is that he provoked it by doing that. Now, as the court has pointed out, this is not forcing the jury that there's provocation. It's not forcing their hand. They don't have to find provocation. You should also consider whether the defendant provoked the attack. And that is a consideration, and that is a point of contention in this case. And I believe it's an appropriate instruction for both incidents.
Judge, the last
I
thing,
interrupted you.
No, that's okay. The last thing that I was going to say is it would also require that he give Mr. Rosenbaum adequate notice that he is withdrawing from the fight or the attack. I think under those circumstances that's impossible to do. But more importantly, I have found a case, it's from Kenosha, on provocation and what that means in terms of a self-defense. That is State versus, and I'll just spell it, it's B-O-U-G-H-N-E-I-T.
Can you spell one more time, please?
B-O-U-G-H-N-E-I-T. It's at 97 West 2nd, 687. And in that case, there was a gentleman in a diner, and people walked into the diner and he started to harass them. He tried to grab the women, harassing the women, verbally accosting people. And one of the men that the women were with came over and said, "You need to apologize." The defendant said, "Let's go outside." So they go outside. The defendant ends up going to his car, picking up a shotgun and shooting the man in the face. And the argument was, did he provoke this? Now, there was testimony to everything that I just told you. Did he provoke that by starting the fight, sexually harassing the women, using the language he used, and then asked the guy to come outside. And the court said he did. So the provocation instruction is clearly appropriate. I don't believe there's sufficient evidence in this record to support the idea that Mr. Rittenhouse provoked this attack. I don't think that that's there. So I understand that it doesn't require that they follow that and say, well, he did provoke it, but I think there has to be evidence to support that. And I don't think that photograph in and of itself, which is obviously open to interpretation, supports the idea that they have to or should consider whether or not that was provocation at that point.
May I respond? I agree the photograph alone would not give the basis for provocation. The photograph is the last piece of evidence that was submitted on this. Detective Antaramian testified to it. We have pointed it out on videos. We pointed it out to the defendant on the video, and he gave what I believe to be a lame explanation for it.
Lame.
So, and again, the defense's own exhibit has it circled on there as it happening. So I believe there's plenty of evidence that Mr. Rittenhouse did raise this rifle and pointed at someone off in the distance, actually Mr. Zeminski. And let's not forget also, I've not given my full argument on provocation yet, the FBI video, well, let me go back. The Corey Elijah and the Drew Hernandez, actually Frank Hernandez videos.
I'll be back shortly, folks.
The defendant walking behind Rosenbaum, Mr. Rosenbaum, on the way to this car source area. At some point, Mr. Rosenbaum begins running. We see that on the FBI plane footage. Our argument is that Mr. Rittenhouse then begins running and following Mr. Rosenbaum. That he follows, if not the whole way from the Ultimate gas station, then when Mr. Rosenbaum starts running, that provokes the defendant, who is actually very slowly and casually walking for quite some time, seemingly, to then go and follow Mr. Rosenbaum there. He then, and the defense's argument is that this is some sort of ambush. And I don't know how you ambush someone that you don't know they're there, but we'll put that aside.
What?
I don't know how you ambush someone you don't know is coming, but we're going to put that aside. So the defendant runs onto the scene and then is seen by testimony and video evidence gently putting the fire extinguisher down. He says he dropped it, but he places it on the ground and he raises the gun, and I disagree about the left-handed thing that Attorney Trofsky just said, and raises it at Mr. Zeminski. That is all in evidence. It's in a defense exhibit.
Can I see that? Is that readily available? Bear with me 1 second.
The state's position is that the running after Mr. Rosenbaum probably in itself is enough to provoke the attack, but putting that aside, certainly raising a gun and with no basis for any kind of self-defense. There's no one around him at the time except an individual in a wheelchair who's behind him. He raises his gun, I would guess, because he thinks there's vandalism going on, but we don't know that because the defendant denied that he did it. And then Mr. Rosenbaum approaches, he somewhat drops the weapon, he keeps two hands on it, and then he has a duty to retreat at that point under provocation, and then he runs. I understand why this instruction is problematic for the defense and for their version of events, but that does not change the fact that pointing a gun, which is in the evidence, is provocation. The defense is
well, wait a minute, no. Oh, you will see if you can find it. Which exhibit are you talking about?
I'm talking about the compilation video that the defense put into evidence. I believe it's 41.
I have it on my screen right now on my computer, Your Honor.
Then you said, we'll see if you can match it up with what she's looking at. Then you said that something about the running one person running after another was provocation. Well, how is that provocation? We're talking now about you're alleging that the defendant was running behind Mr. Rosenbaum, and that was provocative?
That he chased in there.
Your Honor, you can talk all about the evidence. He's walking, especially in the video that was put in yesterday through Mr. Hernandez.
Yeah.
He's walking within steps. Rosenbaum and Zeminski are lighting the garbage can on fire. He sees my client walking down the street with a fire extinguisher, and there's fires down at Car Source. Mr. Rosenbaum knows where he's going. He's already threatened to kill him. He sees them coming. He's got very distinct purple gloves. He goes down and he lies in wait. There's no chasing going on whatsoever.
Where's the chasing? And where is the chasing? And how is that provocation?
The provocation is the raising of the gun.
Oh, so because a moment ago you said that the chasing was provocation, which of course it could be.
I believe it adds
if it's
to the
in the evidence.
I'm sorry. I believe it adds to the provocation that he chased him there and then immediately raised the gun.
He wants the instruction, and then he's going to argue what he just said 5 minutes ago.
Well, and we're free to argue that.
Just like we're free not to stipulate to the third element.
What am I looking at? There's a circle.
I don't believe it's playing yet.
Show me with the pointer what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out that the exhibit indicates he's pointing a weapon.
Huh?
I'm just pointing out that this defense exhibit indicates he's pointing a weapon. We have much clearer video showing this.
And it still has Rosenbaum behind Rittenhouse, if that's Rittenhouse. I'm going to just step out for 1 second. I'll be right back.
We'll take a minute. Well, I'm just rereading it again. Struggling with a couple of things. Number one, and then of course I haven't seen all the photographs you're relying on, but you would have the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the accuracy of what you're saying. You have to disprove the defense, but
Judge,
yeah.
The defense, are we back on?
Go ahead.
The defense's position is that Rosenbaum was yelling gun, gun, gun. Why do you think he was yelling gun, gun, gun? Because Mr. Rittenhouse had a gun. Now, I mean...
Oh, go ahead. I'm not trying to interrupt you.
Yeah, the court is exactly right. We would have to prove this. We have testimony, video, and photographic evidence of this occurring. It is our burden to prove it. I agree. But the jury should be given the instruction that they should consider it. Because if he raised this gun, it's clear provocation. So it's up to us to present the proof, which obviously will be a central piece of our closing argument, with the, I think, 3 different videos, this defense exhibit, which at least indicates that it's there, and the testimony of Detective Antaramian, who indicated he saw this, I believe, after cross-examination or on cross-examination. And the jury can decide it. We don't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to the court or to the defense right now. We have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt to the jury on Monday. There is plenty of evidence in the record to indicate that, to give this instruction. I understand it's problematic for the defense. I understand it's problematic for their entire theory of the case that they presented in their opening. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't get it, because we have presented evidence of this provocation, that the unlawful conduct provoked Mr. Rosenbaum to attack him. If the jury buys our argument beyond reasonable doubt, fine. If they don't, that's their prerogative. They're the fact finders, not the people in this room. We have presented facts for them to consider. They should be given the opportunity to consider those facts in this light.
Judge, I don't think that photograph, maybe I'm wrong, shows anything.
Well, that's for the jury, though.
I understand, but they're asking out of that photograph to give a provocation instruction.
No. We're saying
there's no other evidence.
We're saying that.
No, just a minute.
There's no other evidence. We've talked about the chase thing, right? But every other thing that's come up about what Detective Antaramian said, what anybody else has said, comes from that photograph. That's it.
No, it comes from the drone video, and the defense attorney, the defense knows this, which is why they've fought so hard to keep this out. This is not some new revelation. It's in the police reports. There are allegations that he pointed this gun. This is only to demonstrate that a defense exhibit indicates it. We're not using this to prove it. We're using it to show that even the defense exhibit indicates that this is there. We have testimony, we have video evidence, we have, I believe, photographic evidence that helps, but to say that we're basing it on a blurry photograph is completely dishonest. They've seen this video and they know what's on it, and they know it is problematic for their defense.
Yeah, I can't rely on what you think they think.
I understand. I'll change my argument. But the simple argument is there's plenty of evidence that the state has provided that he raised his gun. It was a known part of the discovery in this case. We should be able to argue that, and we would argue provocation, so the jury should consider it. And they clearly, as they pointed out in their evidence and their opening and their argument today, they can rebut that and indicate we have not proven it. And that's up to the jury. That is not up to us. So I believe we should give the instruction is appropriate. It's add the following when supported by the evidence, and it is supported by the evidence.
There's been no secret about my lack of technical awareness in the trial here, and I thought of it. I decided not to intervene yesterday. I did ask Mr. Armstrong some questions to try to better understand what was coming off, but I didn't go further into it, in spite of a temptation to do so. When I get messages from some of my friends, my few remaining friends, they come as texts, and then they start belittling me or whatever in one way or another, and it can be quite lengthy, the exchange that's going on between them and us, but they're entertaining. And so I don't know how to save text messages. I haven't figured that out, and I have a lot of things that I'm doing, so that's a low priority for me to figure out how to save a text message. And I don't want to leave them on my phone forever. I want it off so that it's clean, so when I look at it, I'm looking just at the fresh stuff. So then I do a screenshot of it, and I email it to myself to save it. But I found, to my distress, that some of them are pretty long, and they show up in my email like this, like a little ribbon down the center of the page. Some of them are even smaller than this. Well, then I go to open them up, and it's just a blur. You were talking the other day, one of you two, about it's just like a cell phone where you can expand a picture and make it bigger. Well, it's not making it any bigger. It's making it bigger, but it's nothing but a blur. That was my concern that I wanted to ask Mr. Armstrong about, and I guess I should have, for him to explain it better for me as to how that can be reliable. Because it isn't reliable for me in getting my messages on my phone. Now, maybe if I reset it to a site, I could explode it again or decrease its size again, and I don't know. But here you've got a picture, which I have to tell you, I think it's very blurry.
I agree. And the picture is one of 5 or 6 pieces of evidence. So I know the defense wants to focus on this picture, but the picture is only one. We have 3 videos, one unedited, completely untouched drone video, which I think is where you see it clearest. And then we have one that is zoomed in, and we have one that is slowed down. I believe the clearest shot is actually the original drone video. So we can present that evidence, and they can rebut it. I think you're taking the picture wrong on your phone. I'm not tech support.
Pardon me?
I think you're taking the picture wrong on your phone.
Is that it?
I think so.
I'm not surprised.
But these things are in evidence. You watched it on the screen yesterday, whether you formed your opinion or not, and that was
my opinion is not what counts, except to the extent that if there's no if it totally
was that proud to be an American?
Unclear, just totally unclear, then I certainly can't give a provocation instruction based upon a picture that I can't make anything out of. I agree with you, the ultimate determination of what it shows is for the jury.
You guys know at the end of the trial, the following will happen, right?
Not based on the picture. It is based on the drone video and the testimony. And this was testimony elicited, if not by the defense, then in response to their questioning. Detective Antaremian testified he reviewed it and saw it. And that was a common question to many people in this case. The photo is like the 5th or 6th most important piece of evidence. The most important piece of evidence on this point is the drone video itself. And that is unedited. There are some edited copies as well that are helpful. But to focus on this photograph, that was almost an afterthought simply because we didn't get it till the day before, and we figured it may be helpful at some point. The photograph is, we may not even show that to the jury. It is based on the drone video and the testimony of Detective Antaremian. It is in the record. We have evidence of provocation. I can't fathom why, if there's evidence in there of provocation, which we have clearly done, why we cannot argue it and why we cannot get that instruction. The defense...
How many more options have been taken away from the jury while I was gone?
...and to attack it. But that is why we have trials.
I haven't seen it clearly, okay?
I have.
Oh,
Your Honor, they're arguing for something saying we've been on notice from the beginning. And if they wanted to put on the evidence to prove up provocation, all they had to do was call Mr. Zeminski or Mrs. Zeminski to rebut the story that we have. They didn't put them on because Detective Antaramian, Detective Howard both know he's a liar. And they're building their whole prosecution on that without putting them on.
well, they don't have to call a particular witness.
But they don't have the provocation. And, you know, we had all these little things going on yesterday, and I went back to my office, and the whole essence of the problem came down to these two facts in the testimony.
I went back to my office and they were looking into sinks and showers.
Hours to manipulate that photograph to get that blurry mess up on the screen. We had our expert do it right in front of the jury and
Wait, there's no way that's true, right? The judge said he saves texts by taking a picture and emailing the pictures and then they're blurry. There's no possible way that that happened, right?
Again, we're focusing on a picture that is again, we're focusing on a picture that I've said repeatedly now is the least
Well, show me the best one.
What?
How can I find that?
Your Honor, yesterday, before Mr. Armstrong was allowed to testify in rebuttal, we went over this about whether or not the methods he was using were appropriate, and we showed you walked up to the 4K TV, and we showed you exactly what it is we're talking about.
And I'm not even going to tell you what I thought when I saw it.
And Judge,
Remember what they were looking at?
We have facts.
I know it, and that's why I let it go to the jury.
It was crazy.
That's what we're asking, is that the jury be allowed to consider the state's evidence, is essentially what we're asking.
I don't think, Your Honor, you would have allowed Mr. Armstrong to testify yesterday. I don't think you would have allowed him to testify in rebuttal unless you had made some determination that there was some basis for this.
What I made a determination was that I thought the jury should make the decision.
And that's all we're asking.
So that's your best picture, the one I saw?
If people are looking for that meme format that I just put up, it's in a post I made on the subreddit, and it's on our Discord, okay?
You're asking me to give an instruction. I want to see the best picture.
Oh my God.
We need to get Mr. Stute over here, I think.
He has real I'll poop in the sandbox if I'm not allowed to play in it sort of vibes.
TV? By the way, how are the calzones?
Oh, man. Thanks to Amanda Hudnall and Paige Foshi for signing up on my website, joinpacman.com, putting us at 46. We are so close to locking in the darkened mustache for Monday. Also, I saw someone in the chat say if we get to 100, they will have David Pakman Show sinks and showers tattooed on them. That's something interesting that we should probably look into. Oh, also thanks to Magnum Satan for the Patreon pledge. Those count double today, which puts us at 48. Let's just do another free item from my store. Whoever comes in at number 50, you can pick any item you want from our online gear store, and we'll ship it to you.
Are you talking about 82?
Bring it up if you would.
Which one is that?
82 is the slow.
No, I think the best picture is on the original drone or the normal speed one.
73, you say so.
And there it is again. What a day. What a day, huh?
Judge, I think using the defense, we've got the exhibits on our one of our laptops that I think Mr. Stute has. I've texted him to come on over, but I think Ms. Wisco is graciously going to be able to play them for you. I would recommend watching them on the 4K TV. I think that's the best way to see them. So we can set that up. There is the full drone footage. There is the slowed down drone footage. And then, of course, we have the photographs that Mr. Armstrong had yesterday. So
This is crazy.
Let's take a break. Lunch is here.
yeah.
But we have Subway tomorrow. Pizza is here. The food is here.
Oh, man. Nicholas Hobner is new member number 49.
Coming and watching on 4K TV.
Very, very close here.
Which if it's not 4K quality.
What's that?
Is it this TV,
It's your TV.
adds pixels to something unless it's 4K quality? It does
Where's
next
the
to
evidence on
neighbor.
that?
It's your
It's
TV.
common sense and judgment, Jim.
There's no evidence.
Did you hear that?
I have no idea.
I'm saying there's no evidence on that.
I'm asking.
I'm saying there's no evidence on that.
Well, it's common
questionable argument.
sense.
You brought in this TV. to show the exhibits.
Where is Kyle going?
You brought in the TV to show the exhibits. So that's what we're doing.
What the hell is going on? Is it a 4K drone camera on a 4K TV? Is that what's going on? All right. Brooklyn George is new member number 50. Brooklyn, you get a free item from my store. Email info@davidpakman.com and we'll tell you what info we need. I want to say thanks to David who made a pledge on Patreon as well.
This is the unedited.
Okay.
Is this unedited?
Yeah, this is the unedited.
73.
So, Judge, we're going to be focusing your attention right here at the base of this
Right.
sign. Okay, that's where the defendant is going to come into. Go ahead.
Can you imagine, guys?
Okay, you can stop because we're past it now. Okay, this is the same quality as our version, is it? Yeah.
I almost need a Windows soundboard.
Our version is much clearer.
Yeah. We'll have to get our... Yeah, Mr. Stutz coming.
So what you're showing me now is this doesn't show anything. This is what was provided to the defense.
Yes.
Okay. Massive technical issues. Well, the judge is sitting right down there. This has got to be a performance, doesn't it? Isn't this just a performance by the judge? I want to say thanks to some really great people. Joshua Hatton, Scott Spear, Elder Brown, Tristan Lucero, Hunter Lambertson, Bryce Arnold, Nick Schwerin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thanks very much. 7 people signing up on my website, putting us at 59. Also, thanks to Richard Bosley, who made a Patreon pledge, and those count double, pushing us to 61. Judge, that's flowers and pears. Could be Bartlett. Could be Bosk. Is it pronounced Bosk pear or Bosch? Bosch.
Get vaccinated.
There you go. Oh, man. No signal. You love to see it. You really do. I really want to say thanks to Magnum Satan for upping their pledge from $2 a month to $100 a month via Patreon. That is absolutely huge. I appreciate that. I've not cut the audio, guys. The court has cut the audio. Looks like maybe some stones sticking out of water now that the judge is looking at.
We're looking very strongly at sinks and showers.
Oh, man. This is a field of lilies. Looks like some kind of tea set. Big thank you to Ollie Wright. Ollie Wright just signed up on my website with the coupon code Up in the Air.
Sir, your wife is up in the air.
But of course, today's coupon code is Uncharged Pickles.
Uncharged pickles?
Right. Judge, in your estimation, is this more... Oh, okay. No, they took it off. Any resemblance to Starry Night with this image, Judge? Any at all? The judge may throw out 3 more charges on the basis that it's not really been demonstrated that Pluto is a planet. It's legit crazy that this is what's going on. I agree with you guys. It's just it's wild.
Is this the zoomed in or the regular?
This is the regular version.
So we're looking right here. This is the defendant. He puts it down, he raises it up right there. He has it pointed until Rosenbaum approaches, then he runs around.
Wouldn't you think the defense lawyers would tell Kyle Rittenhouse to just stay sitting down at the defense table?
And can you slow it down?
We have a slow...
Not in this version. We have a different version of this.
That's what you watched yesterday.
Go ahead, sir.
Right here is the gun. Right there is the gun right here.
Right, like the jury can decide whether they buy that that's Kyle Rittenhouse or not. The jury can decide that.
Mr. Rosenbaum.
One more hand.
Here, Stu, let me pause it 1 second in, please.
Start playing.
Pause.
Pause.
Right here. If you watch it, when he goes right up here, he puts the fire extinguisher down gently. It topples over, and then he immediately raises up.
I mean, honestly, can a lawyer tell me, is it appropriate for the defendant to be leaning over with his head like 2 feet from the back of the judge's head the way he's doing right? Is that appropriate? I've never seen that. Look at him. Look at how close he is to the judge. I've just not seen it.
Gun, gun, gun. We would argue it's to warn all these people that he is pointing a gun at them, and that he is chasing him out of the area.
It's not normal.
To avoid danger. But if you see right here, the state believes, with all the motions taken, that's the gun. And here's it's right here.
Is that where Mr. Rosenbaum yells, "You're not going to do shit, MFer"?
We can talk about this on closings, if you want.
I was just curious.
What's that?
I said I was just curious.
All right.
So why don't you play it from the beginning one more time?
This is crazy. It sort of seems like the judge's position is, if the judge isn't totally sure that it's Rittenhouse, he doesn't even want the jury to be able to consider this. I mean, it's crazy.
Or lower it, I should say. Would you like the zoomed in or slowed down one?
I'd like to see the enhanced one now.
In normal speed or slow speed? Do the zoom in normal speed.
Zoomed in normal speed.
Sorry, guys. I just have to ban about 10 more people. I apologize. Thanks to Max Roy for the Patreon pledge. Those count double today.
It's 81 and then 82. 81 first, then 82.
Also, thanks to Rachel Birch.
Slightly cropped and normal speed.
The court reporter wants to use the wireless mic.
Oh. So this is the defendant right here. You can see the AR-15 is on his chest. The fire extinguisher you can't see right now because it's blocked by this man in the wheelchair. But you'll see him walk up again. He will gently place the fire extinguisher on the ground, although it will fall over, and then he will immediately raise his gun up and point it at the individuals who are over here, who I think are right now blocked by this street light. But they're the Zeminskis. Okay, go, Brian. See him lift it right there. He's holding it right there until Mr. Rosenbaum approaches. You see the very distinct motion of him raising his arms, and you see the black gun being raised. One more time, please.
You'd agree if that's true. He's doing it open to the camera.
Well,
so
you know what?
No, I would not say.
That's not for them to even debate right now. That's crazy. Thanks to Bray Hildebrand for signing up at joinpacman.com. Thanks, Bray.
So here's the gun.
Or Bree, I'm not
Sits
sure.
down and raises it right here. He still has it up right there, and then he drops it and runs. Would you like the slowed down version?
Yeah, please.
Slowed down version, please.
Zoomed and slowed, please. Next element, please. I genuinely have never seen the defendant just kind of hang out by the judge looking at exhibits like this. I've never seen it. We've covered a lot of trials. It strikes me as so odd.
So here's the defendant here. There's the AR-15 right there. Play it, please. So he's coming into frame. He drops the fire extinguisher and he raises it right up. He has it up right there. You see him bring it down, and you see him start to run. He's pointing it at Joshua Zeminski, who probably is vandalizing or committing arson, but that's another.
Where's Zeminski's gun?
We don't believe he has his gun out at that point.
Wait a minute.
He fires it.
I didn't hear what the judge
What? I'm sorry?
I said, where is Zeminski's gun? What I meant to say was, does it depict Mr. Zeminski's gun? Right.
At this point, no, it does show him shoot in the air.
Well, that's over later. It's over there.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about at this point.
I don't believe it shows Mr. Zeminski's gun.
Does it show Mr. Zeminski?
Can you play it again, Brian? He's kind of
Or
hidden.
Mrs. Zeminski?
They're kind of hidden by this light post.
That's what everybody is saying. I'm so sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Is it okay? Do you need me to record this? Because I'm getting judged what you were saying.
Yeah, because it's argument. What I have inquired is, well, wait.
What a mess. This is a shit show.
Okay, what I'm inquiring is whether what I'm looking at now depicts
Do you want to show them?
Mr. and or Mrs. Zeminski and
It's wild because there are other cases where if there's a defendant that killed two people with a gun, circumstances aside, they wouldn't be allowed to stand behind the judge with there's no court officers around. I mean, okay, I'm not saying handcuff him the entire trial. That's considered prejudicial in many cases for the jury to see the defendant handcuffed. But this is very strange.
We did not try to do any enhancements on that.
Yeah. I mean, we know from the FBI video. We know from the FBI video, Your Honor, that they're in this proximity alongside the Duramax, but because they're darker clothed and the Duramax is a dark vehicle, and of course other issues with the video, it's not, and there's poles and things, so they're in that vicinity. The FBI video, which we can show you, does give you.
I've seen it.
It might be helpful after seeing this now to see that because it kind of gives you a better idea.
So. If you play it, I think I can play it, please, Brian.
Go ahead, play it, Brian.
Be sure if you're going to speak to a microphone.
I believe they're blocked by the light post, but they are right here.
I think this is one of them here. Moving.
Thanks to Nash Asim
It's very hard to tell.
for signing up on my website. Thanks, Nash. Number 67 today.
But then they walk down this way, and this is where he we don't accept the defendant's story that he had his gun out, because in the video you clearly see Mr. Zeminski pull it out of his pocket, fire in the air, and then put it right back in his pocket. So unless he had the gun out and then put it in his pocket in these few feet, we're not accepting the defendant's story. In fact, we believe this contradicts his story that Mr. Zeminski had his gun already out, because you see on the next enhanced video, you see him pull it out of his pocket and fire it in the air quick and then put it down.
He keeps it down on his side. He's walking right down the sidewalk yelling, that dude just shot somebody. You can see the gun clearly in his hand.
No.
Well, this sounds like a great argument. Did you want to make any observations about this before I make a decision?
Well, you're going to see. I'm cheating here. You're going to see what you believe that you see. Okay. So that question is: does that video provide enough information to give an instruction on provocation?
And Your Honor, how does, if you take everything they've said as true, how does pointing a gun at Zeminski provoke Rosenbaum, who they say they don't know each other?
There's no evidence of that. They didn't call these Zeminski's. Mr. Rosenbaum is dead, and it's defense of others.
Well,
and it's pointing a loaded firearm, which is a misdemeanor without any real basis.
Well, the evidence, is this okay? The evidence in the record of two people is that Mr. Rosenbaum had twice before threatened to kill the accused. So, what is the legal effect of a person who, if he made such a threat, what legal justification does he have to chase after the accused in such a way as to not put the defendant into a position of being a provocateur?
We are absolutely not. We are not accepting the evidence that threat was made because there are different accounts of where and when it was made, and it's like the only 5 seconds not caught on video all night. So, but like you said, Judge, it'll be a great argument, and I do not believe that Mr. Rosenbaum does not give up the ability to be provoked. Because he may have said things an hour earlier. If this individual, now remember, there is evidence in the record that he was accused of pointing guns at other individuals for property crimes. The defendant admitted he responded sarcastically to one of them. On the video, he sort of sheepishly and quickly walks away after admitting he pointed a gun at someone for property crimes. The state's belief is that he pointed a gun at Mr. Zeminski for another property crime, and this dangerous behavior, pointing this loaded, powerful weapon at someone for, at the most, perhaps stoking a fire that's already been lit, would be provocation. The committing this unlawful act would be provocation for anyone to intervene and try to chase him away, whether or not it's threats have been made. And I know Your Honor takes these threats seriously, but we've also seen thousands and thousands of threats to kill that have never been acted upon. This guy, Mr. Rosenbaum, was described as a babbling idiot. There's no evidence he ever caused any physical harm to anyone that night. And frankly, even if he had threatened, he had no means to carry out his threat. So, as you said, it's a great argument. There's evidence in the record, not just by video, also by testimony, and there's enough evidence to give this instruction. If the jury does not accept this argument, if we do not meet our burden, that probably is beneficial to the defense, but it should at least be argued as the evidence does support it. And it goes directly in contrast to what the defendant testified to.
Pretty straightforward argument.
Do you want to respond?
Judge, it's been hashed over.
Well, it's the jury's. It's the jury's case, and I think they should make the critical decisions.
There you go.
My decision will be to submit the case to the jury with the provocation instruction.
There you go.
And you can argue the strength or lack of strength of the respective evidence. So I will give that instruction, and I'll give the. You didn't dispute the retreat, did you?
I don't think it's. I did. I don't think it's. If you look at the comments, it's not necessary. It says right in the comments, the committee concluded that while reference to duty to retreat is arguably unnecessary,
The defense is almost against there being any charges. Big surprise.
Use of force, it's advisable to continue to publish it. It is intended to be optional in the sense that it is to be used only when the trial judge concludes that retreat is an important issue in the case, and the jury's understanding will be aided by a statement of rather than the general legal standard that applies. So I don't think that under these circumstances there's any, can't say it's unfavored, but if you look at the comments, there's no reason, in my opinion, to give it. He does retreat. There's no argument about that, but I don't think it's necessary to be given.
Judge, I believe that it is appropriate in large part because this was, that there is no duty to retreat was mentioned in opening. I believe Attorney Tarofsky referenced it in a cross-examination that the defendant had no duty to retreat. So I believe that there should be, that's been put out to the jury. There should be a fuller explanation of what that means, that they can decide and they can see if there was opportunity to retreat. We see the defendant has plenty of open space in which to retreat. He does so right after shooting Mr. Rosenbaum. And also...
well, yeah, no, I'll say that. Everybody was scattering then, and that dramatically changes the situation.
If you look at the FBI video where he ran to, there was absolutely no one there before the shooting.
The FBI video doesn't pick everybody up. The FBI video does not pick everybody up. The Zanin video shows it clear as day. There's 100 people over there bashing on windows.
Yeah, the Zanin, I don't remember which it was. I think it was Zanin. Video, to me, depicted a large number of people who were engaging in violent activity. Well, property violence, but it's still, they're using clubs and wrenches or whatever else to be doing destruction to those cars that are right in the area which would have been the path of flight for the accused. And I'm wrong about that?
Yes.
Oh, in this video, you hear the 5 gunshots. You hear the first gunshot, which is Mr. Zeminski, and there's kind of a flinch of the crowd, and then you hear the 4 shots that Kyle fired.
Yeah, let's have a look at it. I sure formed the impression when I looked at it that this is just to the south of the area where the shooting took place, and that there was a very large group of people in there who were intent on riotous activity.
I agree that in the southern portion of the lot there is. The defendant testified that his first instinct was to try and head north on Sheridan, that he could not because Mr. Rosenbaum was there. But as their testimony is that he was somehow trapped or blocked in these rather loosely parked cars. And you will see, I believe in the video, that the route the defendant takes after shooting Mr. Rosenbaum.
I don't want to hear about after, because after, that's a different situation entirely.
All right, well,
watch the video. Let's watch the video. Sure, you can put the sound on if it's there.
So over here past the hospital.
Can you pause it, please? Or go back 2 seconds. The defendant runs here. There's no one in that area.
Wait for the gunshots. Which comes in a minute, 10 seconds approximately. Just let it play the cross just ready to get car on fire.
Thanks to Kyle Anderson and Cinco Obamna for signing up on my website. New members 68 and 69 today. Thank you. Pleasure. Couple super chats. Chat, let's focus on one thing. If he's found not guilty, his life is already publicly ruined by the majority of America. No, he'll actually be a hero to many. He'll probably get speaking gigs and stuff like that. The judge is setting up a dangerous precedent if he's fighting for verbal threats alone is enough to kill in self-defense. David just started tuning into the trial. What's up with the judge? Why do I get kangaroo court vibes? If Kyle Rittenhouse walks, what are the odds of a civil suit against him? Good question. David, regarding Rittenhouse standing behind the judge while watching video, Rittenhouse is not in custody.
They shooting. Oh my God.
It seems to me that there's quite a bit of flight from that otherwise congested area after the shots are fired. So prior to the shots being fired, there were quite a crowd there. What?
Judge, I don't believe there's a crowd where the defendant ended up retreating to, but
ended up is after the shooting had occurred.
I understand. So my main reason for wanting this instruction, or our main reason, is that the defense has already stated that there is no duty to retreat. So they've already put that in evidence. I imagine they will argue it again in closings. So I believe the jury should properly be able to instruct on the law on guarding retreat.
Did you want to respond?
Your Honor, he's arguing the instructions. I'll keep my mouth shut. I said he's arguing the instructions. I'll keep my mouth shut.
You saw the video, Judge? There's hundreds of people with weapons causing damage. What happens after doesn't matter because it happens after. And I'm trying to do this on the law, which is that it's unnecessary based on the fact that self-defense is going to be given. And the question was the use of force in the situation reasonable? That is contemplated by not giving 810. That's what the committee says.
My inclination is to give it, but if I find it's adequately covered in the other instructions, then I won't.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Judge, I don't know if there's any jury instructions. Obviously, this case, anyone can pull up any video testimony of anyone testifying. I'm just wondering if the court feels it appropriate or allowable to play portions of testimony to the jury on closings.
You mean from media sources?
Yes.
Wants to play court TV.
Well, I'm not saying we want to. I'm saying we should talk about it now before anyone tries.
Well, that's a good point. I don't want to specify one. Court TV has certainly, and I might add, has done a magnificent job in this trial. In staying out of my way and just keeping things going. I think. So I'm not saying you shouldn't follow that. You could use any source that is carrying it, except not one where they're commenting on it one way or another. Of course, no one would do that. At least not if he knew what was good for him. So unless there's some objection, I don't have any problem with that.
I don't think it's appropriate.
We're not seeking to do it. I just wanted it out there before someone tried to do it.
I'm happy to agree that we're not going to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do that.
I just didn't want to be blindsided.
Let's do that. Okay, so there won't be anybody doing that. Now, but you bring up a good point. If the jury goes into deliberation and wants to look at some of this evidence, of course, one would read the law, I think, nowadays to say that any scrutiny by the jury should be in the presence of the court here in the courtroom. I very, very strongly disagree with that. I think that's antiquated. I think that that's based actually on a case I tried right here. Once again, I was there.
Okay, so the issue is if the jury wants to look at testimony or whatever, can they look at it by themselves in the jury room, or do they have to come into the court?
Dissertation on that, but that led to, I think, the Anderson case about showing videos and things. The law actually developed around recorded statements of the accused as opposed to videos of the actual events. But I think the general rule now is supposed to be that we're supposed to do all this under judicial scrutiny.
Could also say
We have to
transcripts.
ask permission, and then we have to supervise. One of the things that I find most offensive is that we've got to scrutinize it to make sure they don't play it too many times, so they don't overemphasize some aspect of the evidence. I think that's what the cases say. And I think, how dare us, the founders of the Constitution, have juries because they don't trust the judges, and the judges have spent the last 225 years returning the compliment by telling, always suspecting that the juries are going to be up to no good. If this were a bench trial and like this, I watched it. How many times have I watched that video now? And you know what? I could sit and I could watch it maybe 50 more times. And in fact, the famous Boston Marathon bomber was resolved because an agent from the FBI watched the video over and over and over and over again and finally realized what nobody else had caught, which was that Mr. Tsarnaev, who is now under death sentence, temporarily not. We don't know what the outcome will be in the Supreme Court. But uncharged piccolos, that everybody else was looking one way and he was looking the other. And it took numerous times looking at the video to solve that crime. So for me to monitor how many times the jury looks at something, if we're a bench trial and I looked at it 100 times and I finally decided I better not look at it anymore because I might prejudice myself, I'd get reversed because that's an absurd thing to say. So I don't want to sit here and monitor how many times they look at something.
Is this guy okay?
When it was an attempted murder case of a police officer. And
what was the question?
And they're told they can't even discuss it with one another. And
my
they
God.
can't resist, and so they're saying...
Someone should object to this rant.
And then I send them upstairs, and they're not looking at it again. And I think that's really frightening. So I think if they want to see the exhibits, we should give them the equipment to see it and let them do what they want with it. So that's what I think. Now let me hear from you.
Judge, I agree with you that that is antiquated. I think this is the ideal case where giving them access or setting them up somehow with the exhibits would be great. I saw this as a issue. I did ask people at the Department of Justice to look into it. Not a formal opinion. They indicated they believe it would be reversible error. I asked even if there was a stipulation and if the defendant agreed, and they thought it would still be reversible error under the current law.
Wow.
And also, and I'm not saying it would be ineffective, but they thought it would raise an ineffective assistance of counsel claim if there is a conviction. I do not want this case to be a test case on long-established law. I agree that the law is antiquated, and with the explosion of technology in the last couple decades, it needs to be changed, and perhaps we can do so legislatively. But as it stands now, the state feels that we should follow the procedures, as antiquated they may be.
Defense?
I don't want them having a free-for-all up in the deliberation room.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to cram it down on this case. One day, with a short trial.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This is crazy.
It is.
It's just absurd.
It is.
And,
I agree.
And I'm the one, I guess, who's the dinosaur on technology, but
Right. Right.
I certainly respect it more than our law does. Uncharged piccolos? We need to talk about the lesser included offense instructions, Mr. Rittenhouse. The effect of these, right now, the charges against you, which are stated in the amended information, counts 1 through 6, the district attorney has to prove each of them beyond a reasonable doubt in order to obtain a conviction on that particular count. And there's something called lesser included offenses, and I'm sure your lawyers have discussed it with you, but I want to make sure that you understand it, and I'm required to do that. And if the district attorney is not able to establish your guilt on the charged offense beyond a reasonable doubt, then the jury is instructed that they must acquit you, find you not guilty. If a lesser included offense is presented to the jury, any of the ones we talked about, which are less serious crimes, carrying a lesser potential sentences, if I allow those, then the jury, if they are unable to agree that you're guilty of the charged offense, will have the opportunity to consider whether you're guilty of the less serious offense, and could return that as a verdict, as an alternative to instead returning a verdict of not guilty. So you are, by having a lesser included offense included, you're raising the risk of conviction, although you're avoiding the possibility that the jury will end up compromising on the more serious crime.
Oh my God.
And you're also decreasing the risk that you'll end up with a second trial because the jury is unable to agree. Any question about any of this so far?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. If the jury finds that none of the crimes charged in the sequence, charged or submitted, has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt, then they must acquit you, they must find you not guilty. And they cannot convict you of more than one crime on each count. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your lawyers have objected to some of the lesser included offenses and not others. They have, on some of them, they have agreed that they're appropriate. You don't have to join in that agreement if you don't want to, and you have the legal right to overrule them. And we'd have to talk more about it if you decided to do that, but you would have that legal right and say, no, I want to go to trial on just the charge offenses, all or nothing, and make the decision to force the district attorney to prove each case beyond a reasonable doubt. That would be your decision. Have you had enough time to talk with your lawyers about this?
I have.
Have you had enough time to think about what you're doing?
Yes, I have.
Do you think what you're doing is the best thing under all the circumstances?
Yes.
Has anybody threatened you or pressured you or forced you in any way?
No.
Has anybody promised you anything in exchange for this?
No, they haven't.
Is your mind clear today?
Yes.
Are you feeling all right?
Yes.
Have you ever been treated for a mental or emotional disorder? Well, let me ask you this.
Oh my God.
The important question is
Let him
there
answer.
any reason for me to be concerned that you have some
Wow.
disability, mental or emotional,
What was that about?
prevent you from being fully aware of what your options are and making a rational decision? Any reason I should be concerned about that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Any other question anybody wants asked on this?
His pause was, I believe, because he's in therapy. I don't think he has a mental illness or anything.
Okay.
As a result of this incident,
Okay.
he has PTSD.
Okay. And but that doesn't affect his judgment or reasoning power at all?
I don't believe so.
No.
He's wagging his head no. Okay. Anything else before I accept his decision on this?
No.
All right. So I'll accept the waiver and instruct accordingly along the lines that I've already indicated. Anything else today?
Judge, while you were doing the colloquy, I looked at my email. I got another screenshot of someone saying they know someone on the jury. I forwarded it along just for transparency reasons to the defense and to the court.
Someone knows someone on the jury? Do you guys know what they're referring to? Someone who?
Only one now.
A little disappointed.
What?
I didn't get it yet. Well, wait a minute.
Someone knows someone on the
here it is.
jury.
All right.
In other words, like a random contact of one of the prosecutors knows someone on the jury? Is that what's being said?
All right. Thank you.
All right, well, let's see if there's anything else today. If anybody gets any information about that whole knows someone on the jury, please email me about it. I just want to be informed about it. info@davidpakman.com. So, they have finalized the arguments around jury instructions, but the judge is still to decide about exactly what the instructions are going to be. I want to say thank you to Kyle Rittenhouse and Brad Smith, who have just signed up on my website, joinpakman.com, new members 70 and 71. Lawyer violated HIPAA, revealing therapy for PTSD. Lawyer is not a medical professional, so I don't believe that he can violate HIPAA. That's my opinion. But people can weigh in on that as well. All right, everybody.
Whatever you do, make sure you go to the bathroom somewhere other than the courtroom.
Exactly. That is good advice from Judge Schroeder. Do not use the courtroom. Do not use his chambers either as a bathroom. We will be back Monday. Monday will be closing arguments from both sides, rebuttal from the prosecution, jury instructions, I think first actually, and then the deliberation will start. It could be hours, it could be days, it could be weeks of deliberation. We just don't know. We just don't know. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your... Sorry, we'll be back here Monday. Thank you.